Hello everybody and welcome back to the Scottish Open. It's the semi-final day and it's Chris Wakelin against Matthew Selt, two players that have been quite underwhelming for the last couple of seasons, but after Chris Wakelin managed to reach the semi-final stage of the Saudi Arabia Masters, the match that has actually seen two maximum breaks being made by his opponent, and this time around he will be challenging for his second ranking event final here at the Whole Nation Series. He's lost out on one of them before in 2023 to Watchalong at the Northern Ireland Open by, well, quite a convincing scoreline of 9 frames to 3. And now he'll be trying to challenge Matthew Selt to reach out the final stage, which will see him face either Mark Allen or Chang Min Yu, the winner of the second semi-final. And if you talk about Matthew Selt, of course, both of the players managed to win a ranking event before. Selt done it in 2019 Indian Open, and it's a horror break-off by Chris Wakelin straight away. I think he's managed to get away with it at this stage. Yeah, caught the cue ball way too thin on the reds and got into the jaws of the right corner pocket. So a rookie error. Let's see if he's going to be punished for it. You know, Wakelin comes into this match as a minor favourite, with him being the world number 17. Selt is trying to threaten on the top 32 if he is to be the winner of this event. And of course, if you talk about the ranking event wins, you had Chris Wakelin to be the winner of the Snooker Shootout a couple of years ago when he managed to beat the Belgian beast Julien Leclerc, and Selt is not able to get himself underway, and he had a chance to go for this red into the left corner after quite a convincing performance yesterday against Jiang John. Chris Wakelin had a similar sort of performance himself, and in the end managed to beat Showdown by 5 frames to 3. And so Chris Wakelin's the winner and Mark Allen is the champion. Well, you could see that one, because if Wakelin is to reach the final, you will still have either Chang Min Yu and Mark Allen certainly as a great competitor for him. But for now it is Wakelin that gets underway. And it's a good start there for him. It was very important to get the cue ball lined up perfectly on the brown or green. And, well, Selt had to settle for a bit of a time in his chair. Now then, it's the first real puzzle for Chris Wakelin to get his hands around. And he's managed to do really well yesterday in his break building skills against Watchalong. Had some struggles in terms of pot success, especially in the opening couple of frames. Now then, how's his positional success going to be? It's not very good at the moment, unless he's going to have this red into the right corner. But I don't think he can see enough of it. And cannon the cue ball off the brown and into the main bunch of reds. Don't think he actually worked out too nicely for him. So he's having a good look to see if he's going to be able to get through the other red and put the red closest to the right corner pocket. But even in that case scenario, still think it's going to be a massive challenge for him to try and get past the black and get himself lined up for the next colour. So a minute since the last shot and still no decision being made there by Chris. And probably has to go defensive here. Both players like to play the game in the attacking fashion. We've seen that yesterday, and for them to actually reach this stage, as I say, Matthew Selt has been on the downside of things. And the last meeting between the two of them, of course, has been the UK Championship, so the Triple Crown event, 12 months ago, at the last 32 stage. And if you talk about the head-to-head meetings, you've got Selt winning the first 4 of them. And you've got the Chris Wakelin sort of winning the last 2 at the World Grand Prix and at the UK Championship first round. One of them, of course, wasn't quite a ranking event at that time. It was 2019 Gibraltar Open. Now then, after all this time, let's see if Wakelin is going to go for this red. He will. Now then, is he going to have a nice cannon on the black? I think he will do. And it's a real chance now for Chris Wakelin to try and convert this one into, well, not quite a frame win yet, but certainly into a significant points advantage to try and take into the second part of this frame. Now then, get himself lined up perfectly for this black. Just having to play the shot of 2 cushions there for the cue ball to try and get lined up for those 2 reds available onto the right middle. And, well, it looks like he's played for one of those 2. Of course, had the black not been on his spot, he would have been able to go for one more red into the right corner. But with the black being in the way, has to go for a shot into the middle. Seemed though a couple of them missed by both Selt and Wakelin throughout this tournament. And of course both of them will be looking to try and play the best snooker of the campaign when it matters at the business end of the tournament, looking to face either Chang Min-yu or Mark Allen. And it's a nice little shot there by Wakelin. If the cue ball travelled slightly longer and, well, this way, he's still got a chance to hit the pink into the left middle, but the cue ball is going to be going away from the reds. And that way makes it difficult for the positional shot to be made on the next time of asking. So that's exactly something that Wakelin will be thinking about right now. Probably having to play either trying to hold the cue ball back on the lower part of the table, or instead trying to sort of inject the pace on it, use the ball cushion as a little bounce pedal, and get the cue ball to be lined up pretty much alongside the blue at that stage. Now then, I think he's going to go for option 2, so trying to play the shot with a bit of power. Didn't want to catch the brown on the way in though, but it was a minor enough contact for him to still be on this red into the right corner, and well, the cannon on the brown probably helped him a bit to try and find that angle to pretty much have a straight shot now. I think he'll have the ability to play through this red and with a bounce away from the black ball cushion this time, having himself lined up in and around the black spot, which hopefully for himself will restore the prime position, get his chances up to the, well, certainly frame highest for him to actually be taking this frame away from Matthew Selt from the first time of asking. To say the reds are lined up perfectly, a couple of them being quite, well, slightly too close to the black, but I think that's going to be the area for Wakelin to try and get his hands full of. He's got himself lined up on the first red, and I think he can try and get this one into the left corner, stun the cue ball, and get it past the black. Playing a bit of a risky shot there, because he still can on the black, and could have put it out of position, but didn't. Now then, can get down to business. Plays his black into the left corner, and I think he will have the angle to try and get the cue ball to bounce away from the black ball cushion for the red to be lined up into the same pocket once again. Goals 36 points of an advantage. Still 107 at the table as it stands. So it's a good start this for Wakelin. Of course, it was a bit of a disaster for him when he had a break-off shot, giving a chance away to Matthew Selt, but with Selt not being able to take that one, Wakelin was able to capitalise on Selt's mistake. Now it is going to be a great chance for him to be taking the first frame, and of course Matthew Selt and Chris Wakelin both have been dominating the matches against their opponents yesterday. And well, throughout this campaign you had the brilliant match of Yuan Jun against Chris Wakelin, and in the end the Englishman managed to come out on top in that battle, but it was pretty tight. And ideally, of course, Wakelin wants to avoid going the distance here, and wants to take the game into his own hands. Once again, plays a nice little stun shot on the cue ball, controlling the distance in between the white and the target ball. And now as he plays for this black into the corner, he'll be able to go and make the first 50-plus break of the match. Once again, getting himself lined up perfectly on the next red. So I think he's going to have his work limited now to just trying to stay in around those reds, and as long as he plays nice positional shots on them, doesn't have to apply any sort of spin on the cue ball, and just being able to play through those shots with a natural angle that he's going to set himself with them. And I think he's very close now to getting over the line. He's about to go 60 points clear, as he's got another black off the spot with 83 points still on the table. So he needs 2 more reds after this black, and he's going to be able to put the first frame under his belt and put Matthew Selt under a little bit of pressure straight away. Just having a look to see if it's going to make sense for him to go for the red into the right, well, right middle probably, after he changes his mind last second. That way it allows him to play for the black and stay in around the black spot. And once again, that'll increase the chances of him getting on the next red without further complications and troubles. And I think he lined up a bit too straight on this one, so I'm not sure if he can go for the top spin shot and 2 cushion escape. I think he's going to try and do it, and that way he has to play a bit, well, slightly more power than he has played here, making this red slightly difficult for the frame to be taken. And Matthew Selt needing snookers at this stage. Still has to just drop the red in, and the cue ball is going to be lined up for the blue, and uses their jewel of the pocket slightly, but still going to drop the red in and run himself out of position on for the perfect shot on the green. I think that would have been his best chance of getting the cue ball back down the table, but you can see the first and the opening shot of Selt campaign here in the semi-final. It actually went too well, and of course what followed up was a great little break from Chris Wakelin. Not quite Mark Selt there, of 72 points and counting, but 67 points at the table right now. It's very unlikely that we'll see Selt coming back to the action in the opening frame. So it does look like a very pacey match. You're going to have a rapid start to it, and well, maybe we are going to see a bit of a repetition of Chang Min Yu against Mark Selby. We have seen century being made in the second frame. Of course, the match of Chang Min Yu against Cohen Wilson, seeing the century break from the Chinese player in the opening frame. Maybe Chris Wakelin will be able to get himself off to a perfect start. Of course, the last semi-final appearance that he's had was against Ronnie O'Sullivan, and that semi-final has seen a maximum break being made in the opening frame at that time. Of course, he won't be able to produce quite so much of a stunning break, but he still can try and challenge for the century break. Has to go for red though, into the yellow pocket, and is he going to be able to make this one stick? Not quite. So it's a break of 80 points there for Chris Wakelin to be up and underway, and it's a perfect start for one of the English boys. And not so much for Matthew Selt out there. He trails to Chris Wakelin by 1-0. And very much a rapid frame. One mistake for Selt, and one shot in the end was enough to force Chris Wakelin, well, coming off of a mistake himself there after having a poor break-off shot, leaving that chance away to Selt, which his opponent wasn't able to sort of take full advantage of. And the response from Wakelin wasn't long to wait, and it was a wonderful break of 80 points. Didn't really have any issues with the control of the cue ball. Probably one of his strongest points yesterday, after seeing a couple of, to say, easy misses in the match against Jiangjun, especially the opening parts of the frames in the match itself. And I think Selt had probably slightly more of a convincing performance against his opponent, but as I say, still was struggling on some of those occasions. And one thing that I will say about Matthew Selt, he had a trouble on a frame or two of just getting over the line, where he had the cushion of 40 or 44 points, and he lost out both of those frames. So just has to be careful that he doesn't let Chris Wakelin into that frame before the contention is going to be over. And of course, he has to try and come back from being a frame down. Still is possible, as I say. Wakelin is not the kind of a player that you would expect to be the perfect front runner, one of the best in the game, but he's very consistent when he's playing well. Something that we probably haven't seen throughout the majority of this season, especially at the Home Nation Series. Chris Wakelin has been quite underwhelming, not reaching a last 16 stage at these points, but of course managed to go above that limit and get himself into the semi-final appearance. As I say, has the experience of reaching the final stage before, of both, well, very different formatted of tournaments, Snooker Shootout a couple of years ago, and also the Northern Ireland Open. Of course, he managed to win one of those tournaments and lose out on the other occasion, but if he gets himself into the match with either Mark Cullen or Chang Min Yu, he'll be a great competitor for either one of them, and certainly won't be a massive underdog going into that final. He has got this experience, and of course, saying before that win at the Snooker Shootouts has transformed his life and his career, getting, well, at that time, life-changing money of 100,000 under his belt with the Saudi Arabia Masters as well, and gets himself lined up as the world number 17, with trying to reach $500,000 worth of prize money and ranking points that he's managed to win over the last 2 years. He'll be able, well, certainly be able to go over that limit if he is to be the winner of these tournaments, and will go tantalising close. He's going to be able to beat Mark Selt and get himself into the final meeting with either Chang Min Yu or Mark Cullen. Now then, let's get the second frame started, and it is going to be a break-off shot by Matt Selt. He's able to make it better than Chris Wakelin's break-off in the previous frame, but still not quite perfect, because the cue ball is not going to be settling on the ball cushion, or you're going to have all of those reds being so close to the main bunch think therefore you're going to have a long shot available to Wakelin. It seemed like he was going to go for it quite quickly. In the end, backs down a bit. So maybe just trying to regroup, get himself positioned nicely, and try and go for this one. Maybe hold the cue ball for either both colours or the blue. And, well, in the end, he is going to miss this shot. Now then, the confirmation of this match being played in aggressive style. And is the same red going to be possible into the left corner now? Something for Selt to keep an eye on. And you can see Wakelin wasn't happy with the way that he's played this shot, being pretty much nowhere near getting this red into the pocket. But probably was always going to be the only red that he could actually give away there, getting the cue ball to be on the right side cushion. Yeah, I think it is going to be the red that Selt tries to exploit, and well, could only do a safety shot out of it. So in the end, you can see that he wasn't coming through to the left corner with a couple of the other reds being in the way. And that way, it's going to let off there for Chris Wakelin for the second time of asking. Second mistake that he's made. Right at the beginning of the opening two frames. Now then, if he's going to be able to get the cue ball onto the lower part of the table and try and cannon the pink into the open play. And in the end, he has gone for a couple of reds lower than the pink. And he's still played the shot absolutely wonderfully there. Getting the cue ball to be in behind the green, covering up the majority of those reds that you would expected Selt to try and get his way through. And, well, Selt, of course, has to be trying to get himself in the game quite early because, you know, he's very much one of those players that can sometimes lose his cool when things don't go his way. And the best way for you to try and get yourself started on a positive performance is, of course, trying to be making significant breaks there, keeping your opponent in his chair, and trying to be winning frames, of course, and getting closer to that final spot. And, well, Selt clearly just having a look to see of all the options that were available, and I think he's going to try and bounce the cue ball off the cushion and into the red. And it's a decent effort. Misses the red by a fraction as he comes back onto the top part of the table. So it's the right approach, but he just has to be very careful in terms of not making a 3-miss rule. Of course, that's one of the two misses that he can afford. But ideally, he wants to hit this red on the second time of asking. Otherwise, he'll be forced to change his approach and go for a shot that will guarantee him getting this red, which should probably limit the possibility of him getting the cue ball safe. Just having a look to see if he's going to be able to get through to the other red. I don't think that was possible, so that's why he's signalling to the referee that he has to get the cue ball slightly closer to the right side cushion. And Selt, well, let's see if he is going to try and stick to his approach on the second time of asking, because can't quite do it on the third time. And just having one more look to see if he's going to be able to get past a pink and blue combination, and he wasn't able to do so. And now then, is he going to be risking off giving away a free ball at this stage? It will be very costly there for him, and I think that's going to be the case there. So 6 foul points given away to Wakelin, and is he going to be called as a free ball? I think it's certainly a thing for the referee to keep an eye on. And I think in the end it is going to be a decision made by the referee that it's not going to be a free ball, because surely at that stage Wakelin would have attempted to go for the brown into the left middle, and instead it is going to be attempt number 3 for Selt. So can't afford to hit the red, can't afford to miss a red, I should say. Otherwise he's going to be losing the second frame as well to Wakelin here. And well, of course, Chris finds himself in a wonderful position right now, having that lovely little safety shot that he's managed to play right at the beginning of the second frame. And in the end, puts his opponent under a massive pile of pressure. Because if he is to sort of go for trying to hit this red full ball there, he's going to risk of putting it quite close to the right corner pocket. In that way, allowing Wakelin to go for a long shot himself. Now then, what's the approach is going to be there? I mean, he can't afford to go for a shot off the side cushion now. Let's see if he's going to be warned by the referee first. We're trying to re-establish the cue ball being behind the green perfectly. So getting the cue ball. Getting the cue ball to be restored. And you can see the warning from the referee as well. So now then, Selt has to hit this red. And he's gone for trying to hit it. Now then, where's he going to land the cue ball? And I think he's managed to play the shot pretty well. Unless he's given a red away into the left middle. I don't think he's going to have anything easy away to Wakelin. And that way he manages to do some damage limitation. Now then, is Wakelin going to go for this red into the left middle? Because that way he's got natural angle to try and get on the blue. And of course, realistically, probably the only red that he's going to be risking of giving away is going to be the one that he's playing. But he's having a good look at the plant as well that he's got available into the same pocket of the left middle. The way that Selt managed to play the cue ball onto the ball cushion means that you're going to have two reds on this cushion being in the way of each other. Now then, he does seem to be taking this plant on into the left middle, and of course that's going to allow the cue ball to travel slightly longer and leave Wakelin in charge of the white positioning. And he's played the shot wonderfully out there, and it's an absolute beauty of a shot there by Wakelin, because he had to make significant adjustments on the red ball placement to try and pot it into the left middle. And in the end, he has managed to do so, with still controlling the cue ball well enough to give himself a chance of going for the yellow into the same pocket. And, I think he can try and get the cue ball through a little gap of the pink and the main bunch of reds, but that gap is probably going to be slightly too thin for him to be aiming towards, so he has to find an alternative route to be getting the cue ball down the table and lined up for one of those reds. Now then, the yellow is in, and needs the cue ball to speed up now, and wants himself to be available to go for this red into the left corner. And I think he is going to be on this red, but slightly awkward in terms of his hands positioning. He has to bridge over a red now. He's able to put it past the red. So I thought. He doesn't seem to be too happy with the way he has to play the shot. Once again, the black is not available, so he has to try and get this cue ball to travel quite some distance. Maybe get it lined up for the pink to be taken into the left corner as well. And this is going to be a lot more of a challenge that we've seen in the opening frame, where he had pretty much all of the colours being available. But it's a nice little shot there by Wakelin, slightly over on there on the white, but still should be good enough for him to be attempting this pink in. Another question that has to be raised is where the pink is going to be respotted there by the referee. So Wakelin is having a look to see maybe he's going to try and get himself to be clearing the black ball spot away from all those reds. And the most significant one, which of course will allow the black to go into the right corner, well, it's very marginal for it to be going past the black and into the left corner instead. And let's see what short selection is going to be there for Wakelin. In the end, he plays for another red, so clearly didn't fancy to go for that marginal shot on the red into the left corner. And the pink is going to be respotted quite nicely there, because it still gives Chris the chance of going for the pink into the left middle and right corner as well. Maybe he's going to try and get the cue ball onto those reds here. And, not quite on this occasion, so probably still thinking about the two, maybe three reds that he's got available now, both in and around the pink spot, that he can try and make his way through, get himself lined up with a 40 points advantage, and then try and take the risk of the positional play and the pat split success. Hasn't actually been too great there if you look at the campaign this week here at the Scottish Open, but it still probably was better than the average here among the players. And themselves slightly wide on this red, which was going to be slightly closer to the side cushion anyway. And takes the shot wonderfully though. 28 points advantage still. Of course, no points scored by Matthew Selt so far. And, it looked like it was going to be the positive start for Selt in the opening frame. And in the end, he finds himself in midway through the second frame now. Still not having any of those points scored. And Wakelin does seem to be enjoying the majority of the table time for now, as he plays the blue into the left middle, getting himself lined up for a shot into the right corner. And once again, I think he can try and make his way through those reds, but he is going to run out of them after this pink is going to be taken. So first, once again, the cue ball to be landed on the black ball cushion, bounce away, and probably have the pink lined up onto the left middle after he takes the red on. And, well, he was trying to get the cue ball to hold it on there for those reds, trying to split them, but also have the cue ball to stick around, and being close to the pink. In the end, he has gone very close to the black ball cushion instead, and making this shot on the pink very tricky there for him. And probably is marginal of him not being worth taking that shot on at all, and probably what Wakelin has realised himself. Just having one more look to see which position he's going to have to try and position the white for him to be able to get on the next red. So maybe it is going to be worth just playing the safety shot right now. But he does seem to be taking the pink on into the left middle, and well, it was always going to be very tricky for him indeed, but because I think he realised the fact of if he misses the pink, he's going to send it out of position, and that way Selt is not going to have an easy colour to try and be playing around. And it is going to be the break off 24 points at this stage. That leaves Chris Wakelin walking away from the table and back to his chair. Now then, ever since the opening frame and his first shot of the chance, it is going to be chance number 2 here for Matt Selt. If he goes for the shred, he can still have the natural angle to try and get the cue ball lined up for the blue, and he is going to be underway on the score sheet, but now only on the frame 1. And you can see that he's managed to line up himself perfectly on this blue. So the cue ball, he's going to be travelling down the table and just has to try and find a couple of those reds to make his way through. Then have the pink spot to be completely clear of any more of them. And then of course it is just going to be a technical point of him overrunning the cue ball slightly for the blue and aiming for it to be played on the pink. For now though, he'll have a nice little cannon on the black. Not quite going to have the black to be put into a safe position. And still probably not going to be playable in the next couple of shots, but still getting the cue ball lined up for a couple of reds. And I think on this occasion, he will have the angle to try and cannon the cue ball onto the blue once again. Try and get himself set up off the side cushion, but still a difficult shot there, which he has to make his way through. Finding the gap in between the reds and playing the shot really nicely there, Selt. Now then, 2 reds, 2 blues. He's only 27 points down with still 91 on the table. Letitia, everybody. Hello, Letitia. And, well, Selt probably can try and get those 3 reds closer to the pink spot into the right and left corner. Depends on which way and which order he wants to take them, one by one. And playing the shot with backspin now, right now. Of course, it's quite a problem there for him because he's got to be lined up on those reds with a way that leaves the cue ball a path to be travelling back for the blue ball, which sometimes can be quite tricky. Like, once again, he gets himself perfectly lined up for the shred to be taken, but not really going to guarantee him a shot of the blue now, because it does seem to be very straight on the shred. 22-point advantage now for Wakelin. Of course, as I say, did feel like going for that pink was a bit of a reckless one, because at that time position was still very much bunched up for Selt to try and make his way through. But of course, when you leave that invitation of playing for that red into the left corner, even though he has managed to get the pink out of its natural sort of environment, so far Selt was able to make his way through and in around the blue spot. Now underrun slightly once again there, and I think he has to go for the lower red right now. Try and cannon the cue ball off the black ball cushion and get the white lined up for that blue to be taken onto the right middle. And he's just having a look to see if the lower red is actually going to go past the other red without touching it. Of course, any mistake at this stage, with his opponent still being the man ahead, will leave him with pretty much an impossible challenge of going for the frame win. And, well, it's a surprising shot there that Selt has played, because he commits to going for the black now into the right corner. So clearly passes the other reds, but still this is going to be a tricky shot for him to try and get the black into the corner, but also trying to get himself lined up for the next red. The black is in. Now, is he going to be on the red? I don't think he will be. in such a way that is going to allow him to try and play this cue ball for the black, especially with it going on the pink spot. And, well, probably you have to say that he wasn't probably available for him to be trying to travel for the blue. That way he had to switch for the black ball shot, but as he lines himself up very straight in the shade, and he was always needing an angle to try and bounce the cue ball away from the cushion, and for it to be above the pink spot. He's not going to be able to have that shot set up even for the right middle, so maybe just roll this red in and play the shot off one of those colours onto the top part of the table. So then, 7 points to separate the players as Selt gets himself started on the score sheet with a break of 27 points now. Second highest that we've seen in this match so far. And, well, he can try and use the yellow now. Don't think he wants to put it on the side cushion, as he's still going to be the man behind, but he's played a nice shot there of getting the cue ball to be lined up behind the green. I think he underrun the white slightly, but it still should be limiting Wakelin's chances of going for one of those reds, to just the two reds being so close to each other and very much in and around the black spot. Now then, played this one with a bit of power, so needs a bit of luck now of the cannon of the pink and brown. And has he got it? Because if Selt has got this red available to try and take into the left corner, still think that he's going to be able to make his way through this red combination and get the cue ball past the blue line and onto the bold colours to be set up. So he's just having a look to see. Well, of course, if you are to play an attacking shot, you can still try and take this red into the right corner, but you can have the cue ball to bounce away of at least 4 cushions at that stage. That way, you're not really going to have a safe shot to be played for yourself. So now then, is he going to go for the shred into the left corner? He will. Now he spotted it. It's a lovely shot there from Selt. And is he going to be on the pink to be playing into the right middle? I think he will be. Now, just looking at the replay, it was a wonderful shot there, because the red hasn't even touched any of those jaws of the left corner pocket. Now, you've got a choice of either going for the brown into the green pocket or taking the pink into the right middle instead, for him to go 2 points behind Wakelin now, as he tries to hammer the brown in, getting nice little pace on the cue ball. And, well, he's going to need the remaining 4 reds, to say the least, because that way, if he pots them with a black, he's going to be able to go sort of 28 points clear with 27 on the table. But ideally, of course, just has to make his way through those reds no matter the colour, because apart from 2 of those reds being on the cushion, you're going to have 6 of those colours who've not been on their spots. They're certainly playable. And, well, Selt gets himself into a bit of a problem now, because he doesn't want to take the pink on. And probably he's going to be forced to be taking the blue on, for the simple reason of course, the pink is easier and it gets the national angle for the cue ball. But if it is going to be respotted, it has to go back on the black spot, which, of course, is going to be a signal of the pink spot being taken by the black itself. And that way, it is going to be covering the red that Selt is going to be intending to play for. And, well, as he gets the blue in, as he rolls it off the jaw of the middle pocket, he's still not going to be perfect on this red at all. And overplayed for this one. Does have the angle, of course, to get the cue ball to be lined up past the black, for it to be played off the pink spot. That way it makes this red very much missable for Selt. But still, didn't really have too much of those testing shots up to this point, but he played this one well, but not quite well enough for him to be able to take this break to the value that will get him a frame on the board now, because of him being the wrong side of the black. So maybe just roll this one in and try and play the safety shot of one of those 2 reds. And that will get him 12 points ahead there of Wakelin, with 43 on the table at this stage. So still, because wouldn't quite be enough for Selt to try and sort of restore the equal frame number for them. And, well, I mean, I'm very surprised with his shot selection from Selt, because he was trying, well, it felt like he was trying to do the impossible, because he misses the black now into the right corner, because I think he was trying to play this shot with so much right hand side that he was basically just saying that the cue ball is going to travel to the side cushion and gets itself lined up for those reds no matter what. And in the end, he had to sacrifice potting the black for that shot. Now then, it's a chance for Wakelin to take this red into the right corner, and it's a chance not taken. So now then, where's the red going to finish? It is going to finish, well, very close to being available into the right middle. But once again, probably not going to be the easiest shot of Matt Selt's career. But he has to try and get into the middle. And he's going to be able to do it. I don't think he will be. And yeah, the red catches way too much of the jaw. And I think Selt was trying to get the cue ball to be sort of hampered by the pink for Wakelin not to be able to get past all the bow colours and the pink to have access to this red into the right middle. Let's see if Wakelin can get through to this red. I think he can. And he does. Lovely shot once again there from Wakelin. And had some important shots that he managed to take so far. But he still has got at least two more to try and make his way through. The shot off the blue. And yeah, he was trying to get this red to be available. But as he has a double kiss on it, he's going to leave it on the black ball cushion. And very unlucky there with Wakelin. Because ideally he would have liked to hit it from the left side and sort of put it to closer to the black ball spot. In the end, it is going to be 1 point in this frame so far. And, well, Selt is going to be able to come back to the table at least for one more time. And I don't think Wakelin played a nice shot at all. And he knows that. You can see with his body language and the face expression there, he's made the mess of this one. And he's basically put the red over the right corner pocket. So it's an absolute gift here for Selt. And surely it is going to be a gift which finally he's going to resume and result in a frame being taken there by Selt. And needs the cue ball to run though. And well, hasn't played a good shot now because it was always going to get this red in. And it was always going to be about playing the shot on the positional side for the colour. In the end, ideally, at this stage probably wants to go for the yellow. Trying to have the cue ball to be stunned for the yellow to be taken for the second time. But into the green pocket at that time. And ooh, it was really close. But as he misses the yellow by such a thin margin, he's going to put it over the green pocket. And in the end, it's only a single point scored there by Selt. A couple of mistakes from both players already. And well, surely that was the last one that we've seen from Selt. Because Wakelin only needs the blue now for him to be over the line. And for Selt to be needing snookers to try and get on the pink and black. So now 3 shots away after he gets the yellow into the green pocket. Now then rolls the green itself into the left middle. Plays the shot nicely. And that probably was the one which would have been the last shot where it can go wrong for Wakelin. Because it's a straightforward shot off the brown to be taken into the yellow pocket. A lot of backspin on the cue ball. Bounce away from the side cushion. Or like Wakelin has played it without even touching the side cushion at all. Just having natural spin to guide the cue ball closer to the blue. And have this one taken as a frame ball. And Selt had more than enough chances for him to be taking this frame away from Wakelin. And in the end, that doesn't seem to be the case now. 14 points advantage for Wakelin. 13 on the table. And it's going to be Chris to be taking this pink to ensure that Selt won't be coming for the table and trying to get the snooker on the pink. In the end, it is going to be the break of 20 points, which gets Chris Wakelin over the line. And Matt Selt still yet to get on the score sheet of the frames being won for his name. He had a better frame of the second one, but of course wasted so many of those chances before that he still wasn't able to get over the line after missing that yellow into its own pocket. It is going to be Chris Wakelin to be taking a 2-0 lead into frame number 3. And we still have all to play for and at least 2 more frames until we get to the intermission of 15 minutes. And in the meantime, Matt Selt has to guarantee that he wins at least one of those frames, because if he was to go 4-0 down at the interval, it is going to be mission impossible for him to try and challenge someone like Chris Wakelin, especially for the way that Chris has played, if not super well, but pretty consistent throughout this campaign so far. And as I say, if you mention that Chris Wakelin is currently sitting as the world number 17, Matt Selt is trying to challenge and get himself into the world number 32. So if you go through the meetings that they've had, Wakelin was beaten by Chris Wakelin, as was Yuan Jun by scoreline 5-3 and 4-2. Had a dominant win over Anthony McGill, and well, not so much dominant over Oliver Lyons as well, but yet to get into the side there, even into the first 4 matches. And of course, Matt Selt didn't have any of those either, because he had quite a convincing win against Ryan Day, 4-2. Destroyed Showdown against 4 frames to 0, and outplayed Wu Yize completely, putting 3 frames on the bounce himself and getting himself a 4-1 win before dismantling Jiang Jun yesterday. And still, as I say, the 2 frames that he's lost out on, I felt like they were very much there for the taking. Selt was slightly more clinical with the chances that the player from China has presented to him. And with us still having the world number 38, the world number 70, and the 2 higher rated seeds, the world number 10 Mark Allen and Chris Wakelin as the current world number 17, trying to challenge their way back onto the top 16 after being knocked out by the likes of Si Xiaowei, Guy Wilson, and of course at some stage of this season by Sean Murphy as well, getting dropped out of the top 16 for the first time in pretty much 10 years, I think it was. The likes of Barry Hawkins and Guy Wilson will be under threat if Wakelin is to get himself booked in for the final spot. Not even going to talk about the potential challenge for the title, which will get him comfortably into the top 13 spot and have the likes of Wu Yize, Barry Hawkins, Si Xiaowei and Guy Wilson to drop out of their ranking spots and drop down at least by 1 spot at that time, which still could be important for some of the tournaments like German Masters. You know, you're going to have some of the best tournaments of the season coming up with the Players' Championship, the Tour Championship, the World Open and the World Grand Prix. Will be playing in China. Now then, we're ready to get the 3rd frame underway, and well, once again, Wakelin has to ensure that this one is going to be a better break-off than what we've seen from him in the opening frame. But as I say, that was kind of a blessing in disguise for him, because he still has seen the only shot that Matt Selt has actually played in that encounter, and has allowed Wakelin to have that break of 18 points, which ultimately got him over the line. And, he's managed to build on that and take, well, slightly more scrappy frame of number 2, but he's still ultimately managing to have that cushion of 2 frames being put to his name. And Selt can try and explore this red closer to the left corner, but at this stage, as I say, I mean, if he is to miss any of those reds, he has to be sort of aware of the fact he might not get a better chance than this. So ideally for him, wants to drop this red into the corner pocket, and he will do so. Now then, is the cue ball going to slow down enough for it to be lined up for the green? Yes, he will do. Perfect shot there from Selt. Couldn't ask for anything better, because still puts the cue ball somewhat safe, but still guarantees himself a position on the green as well. Now then, this shot probably wasn't displayed with such great conviction, because he underrun for the red into the right middle slightly. In that way, he has to try and take the pace of the cue ball and inject a bit more of that. I think getting around the black is going to be his best chance of getting himself lined up for the colour. And, well, I mean, whatever you do, don't miss this red into the right middle, and he's going to be very disappointed with himself, because even though he's run himself slightly awkward on this red, it still wasn't anywhere near good enough of an excuse for him to miss this red. And you can see the frustration. He can't believe it as he walks away from the table, but the player and the person that can believe it will be Chris Wakelin, getting himself a perfect chance now to have sort of 40 or 50 points to be scored with all the reds that he's got available to him. Now he can try and make his way through those 2 reds as a planned, and he decides not to be hesitating and waiting for the better opportunity to come. Cannons the cue ball into them 2 and spreading them out and away from each other. Now then, just having a look to see if he's going to be able to get himself lined up for the second red of the bunch, to going 4 points clear after taking the black on. So still has got quite a few reds to try and work his way through, but he should not be anything more of a challenging target than we have seen so far, especially in the second frame, but he still had some glimpses of his fine form. It's just not quite as clinical as we have seen in the opening frame, but also have to put that into context. The second frame was a lot more difficult for him to win, the way the colours and the reds were spread out. And he's played an absolute crack over a shot there, and he's going to be very unlucky. Well, unlucky would seem, because I don't think he's on any of the easy reds, although he is having a good look at the red combination into the left corner, but he's played this one absolutely beautifully. And as I say, would have been very unlucky not to get onto any of those reds, and indeed he was, well, lucky enough there for him to see enough of that red to be taken into the left corner. Now then, for the black to follow into the same pocket and have the cue ball to be restored into prime position once again for Chris Wakelin to be the winner of another frame there against Matthew Selt. Of course, very early to say that in terms of the points that he managed to score, but with the previous shot that he's taken on so beautifully, although there is going to be mitigating sort of circumstances there with the black going onto the pink spot. Well, not really something that Chris Wakelin would have liked to see, because the red that he takes on right now would free up the black spot, and the pink going quite close to the side cushion. He may have to make his way through the blue for now. So maybe that was a bit of a rush prediction to say that it is going to be his frame to lose, as he goes 19 points clear, and also needs the green to be taken into its own pocket. But I think he's going to try and hold the cue ball with a stun shot. Don't think he has to try and get it down the table because of the red that has been missed previously by Selt, being available to be taken into the right middle. Now then, he's just having a look to see if he's going to be on the right side of the blue. Maybe he just wants to go into the bunch one more time, get the black to be out of the pink spot surroundings, with a couple of reds covering the possible angle for the black to be taken into one of those four main pockets. And once again, a little stun on the cue ball as he takes the red into the right corner and gets himself lined up for the blue to be taken. Now then, ideally, as I say, would have liked to see the cue ball slightly further away from the cushion, but still should be far enough ahead there for him to be injecting the pace and trying to disturb the black well enough for him to be lined up for at least one of those reds. And I don't think he's played the shot well enough at all. I mean, he's trying to take the power away from the cue ball. And yeah, I think if he's going to have a red available into the right corner, he's going to be very lucky indeed. He's having a good look at this one. You may be able to get through the black now and try and get this red to be potted into the right corner as he checks that one. And he was able to do so. I mean, very, very lucky there. Very fortunate. He hasn't played a good shot at all previously, but this time around, the luck was on his side. And as the black going to be put back onto its original position, you're going to have, well, a challenge of scoring 30 more points or so. And surely at that point, it will be too late for Selt to be coming back to another frame there, being stolen away from him. And Wakelin very much showing fine form so far, as he tries to limit the number of mistakes that he's been making. And another good shot that he's played, getting the cue ball to cannon into the other red, springing them out and away from each other as far as he possibly can. And, well, once again, the camera goes on Selt. That will be very disappointing. Of course, the worst possible start to the semi-final. Very rarely you see, especially this season, players losing out on 3 frames on the bounce to get this semi-final start. We have seen it in the final, of course, at the UK Championship and at the Xi'an Grand Prix by Mark Williams and Mark Selby, eliminating Sean Murphy and Judd Trump at that point. But not quite in the semi-final stage, especially with it being first to 6. Chris Wakelin is very close to being halfway there and halfway into the final spot, than being the highest rated seed anyway, and also playing better, arguably, throughout this week than Selt. He's going to be mission impossible. We're going to be entering, especially if Selt is unable to put all of those shockers behind him and rejuvenate his form in the frame number 4. And the reason I say that is because Wakelin is very close to getting over the line now. He's got 3 easy reds that he can make his way through. That's going to be more than enough for him to be over the line now. He's got 75 points on the table for now, as he plays his black to be taken into the right corner, bounces the cue ball away from the black ball cushion and under on slightly for this red, which he realised quite quickly. And if he's not going to be able to hold the cue ball for the black, he's going to try and play the shot off the side cushion and get himself lined up for the blue to be taken. And I think, once again, just asking the referee to clean the white for him. Well, a couple of still important shots that he has to play. 52 points in front, 75 on the table. So if he takes 2 of those reds out of the game, at that point, as he takes 2 expensive colours with those 2, he's going to be able to put more points between himself and his opponent than that will be available on the table at that time. Plays a nice shot on the blue for now. Just about going to be on the right side of this colour. And as he puts the cue ball, puts the cue through the white now. Plays the shot trying to hold the cue ball now for one more red to be taken into the left corner. Now 58 points away. So right now he's technically guaranteeing himself a respot without any more of the snookers being taken by Selt, with 59 being advantage and still 59 points at the table with 4 remaining reds. And once again, just like it was in the previous frame, number 1, it is going to be one mistake from Selt, and it is going to be the ultimate punishment of a break of 70 points and counting, which sees Wakelin away and into a 3-0 of a gap against Matt Selt. Ideally, it's something that Selt would have been trying to do himself, trying to put all the pressure on his opponent, trying to sort of get him out of his rhythm, play his own game up to a good standard. In the end, he has gone horribly wrong ever since the opening shot that he's played in the first frame, after, funnily enough, a mistake from Wakelin on his opening shot of the match. And what followed was great consistency once again. Probably has been the strongest point of Wakelin so far throughout this week. And of course has been the way of when winning that snooker shootout. Of course, it is a bit of a lottery, but he still was playing some good stuff 2 years ago. And the final century to end it in style against Julian Leclerc at that stage. Now then, he is going to be halfway into the final spot now, as he's got a 3-0 advantage over Selt. Just having a look to see if he's going to be able to, well, try and get this green out of the way. Get the cue ball lined up for the lower part of the table once again. And, well, as he takes this one nicely, he's got 43 points on the table to still try and make his way through. And the break of 79 points to be taken right now. Just having a look to see, I mean, he has to go for a rest shot now. That way, ideally, he wants the cue ball to be away from the black and be slightly lower than the black anyway, for him to be dropping the cue ball for the final red, still sitting on the side cushion, quite next to the pink. And just check to see if he needs an extension on the cue for him to be able to take the shot nicely. So it's always beneficial there for the players when you play the shot into the cushion, because you rarely see those shots being missed, and this one is not going to be an exception. Plays it nicely once again there, Wakelin. Gets himself lined up for the black. So to go over the highest break of 80 points achieved in the opening frame. And, well, probably has to try and make something happen. In the end, he's going to refuse the straightforward black into the right corner. He's going to go for the green, though. And it's a lovely shot taken beautifully by Wakelin that gets himself super close to the shred. And, well, if you take away the occasion, it certainly can be one of the shots of the tournament so far. Certainly he's going to be very close to the shot that Chang Min Yu has managed to play. They got him over the line against Karen Wilson and earned him a 4-1 convincing win at that point of the tournament. And as Wakelin takes another red along the side rail and into the right corner. Now then just plays the shot off the blue and into the left middle. Gets himself lined up for the 6-color clearance, which for now will get him on a break of 115 points. As I say, from the position that he found himself at previously after that opening mistake from Matt Selt. It has been nothing short of a spectacular break, especially with him not having access to the expensive colours on some of those occasions. Still was able to manage his way through the black and the pink combinations nicely. Required the blue on a couple of those occasions, and well, from Selt's point of view, there's not a lot that you can say about it. He has to improve massively, and he has to do it now. Otherwise, he's about to go 4-0 down, which at this stage, and the complete opposite type of performances that we've seen is going to be an impossible mountain for him to climb back. But for now, we are going to witness a century break if the blue disappears into the right middle. So it should be a straightforward shot, and it is going to be a century being made by Chris Wakelin, and a dominant performance by the Englishman so far, as he gets himself lined up for a 115 clearance. Slightly hampered for this ping to be taken, but manages to recover well once again. Gets the cue ball to bounce away from the side cushion nicely for the black. Now then, for a total clearance, 115 points being scored by Wakelin, as he gets the cue ball to the top part of the table, and well, not quite the total clearance, but still a century break of 108 points, and it is going to be Chris Wakelin to be taking a 3-0 lead over Matt Selt onto the fourth frame, and well, it is now or never for Selt to try and start delivering, otherwise he's going to be going into the second mini session being 4-0 down, and surely just a matter of time at that stage before Wakelin is going to be over the line and getting himself set up for the final clash of Chang Min Yu, or either Mark Allen to be up against him. But for now, Selt still has a chance if he is to have a brilliant rejuvenation, a revival of his performance, and maybe have a century break of his own. At least, well, going for a chance there. Now then, sorry about that. Had an internet connection issue, which got the stream to be down slightly. But now then, because the beneficial fact of that was the break in between those frames, and as we get the fourth one underway, it is going to be a challenge for Selt to try and get himself back in this game without, well, having significant chances in the first and third frames. He had a bit of a glimpse in the second one where, you know, if he doesn't miss that yellow, he probably is going to be the winner and be taking that win over Chris Wakelin, but instead he is going to be 3-0 down going into the fourth frame, and as Selt goes for a break-off shot, leaves a turn back to Wakelin, and he's going to try and get himself off to a good start now, and well, certainly managed to do that on the right-hand side of the table, not quite so much on the left-hand side of it though, and let's see if he's going to be able to try and get himself lined up for the position on the left corner. So now he just tries to have a look to see if he's going to be worth taking on that shot at all. At this stage, as I say, the last thing that Wakelin wants to do is give Selt an easy invitation back into this match, and that will be the case if he is to miss an easy red and leave it over the pocket. So Wakelin just asked the referee to clean the white, and the respot wasn't quite perfect there with him. So Selt doesn't seem to intervene, as Wakelin just asked him to confirm that that was the cue ball placement previously. Now then, he's going to try and go for this red, which of course can be slightly controversial if he is going to get it, especially from Selt's point of view, but he missed it by a mile, I would say. And it is going to be going back to Selt here. So it was a chance there for Wakelin. And he didn't quite leave the red over the pocket. But he could have played this one better. Once again, it reminds you of the shot that he's played in the second frame, which ultimately has given away a chance to Matthew Selt. And he has got this red that he can try and play along the side cushion. And getting the cue ball to travel back for the blue. And he gets the red in nicely, to be fair. It's all about just trying to make his way through all of those reds that he's got available to him, and he's got quite a few of those. He's got a couple on the lower part of the table, especially closer to the right side cushion, and he's got one which is going to be slightly above the blue ball line that he can try and drop into the left middle. Now then, if he plays this shot with a bit of screw back on the cue ball, he's going to be able to get himself lined up for this red to be taken into the left middle. And plays the shot nicely, to be fair, because, just trying to stun the cue ball is going to let him the chance of taking this blue, with still sending the cue ball down the table for the second time of asking. Now, as he drops this one in, well, in the end, he's trying to sort of play for the bold colours, which don't really understand the purpose of. Because surely he would have had more control of playing for the blue, but maybe didn't have the perfect angle to try and drop the cue ball in behind the blue. And the angle that he would have been way too much for him to try and drop the cue ball onto one of those reds into the right corner. He's going to try and have a look at the yellow being available to him. Maybe even go for the brown. Slightly more difficult of a shot there for him to play. In terms of he's always going to leave the cue ball further away from those reds. But clearly was happy to play that shot. And as he drops himself for that red, well, I mean, he's very close to being not potable there, Has to be careful that he doesn't touch the pink. And plays the shot well. To be fair, he's played the shot really well, because that way, as I say, ideally he wants the pink to be respotted back into its original position. With the black being covered up by all of those reds. Still not going to be perfect for now, for the time being. And he's going to be able to go for this pink to be taken into the right corner. And get himself lined up for the next shot. On there, well, a couple of more reds that he's got available to himself that he can take into the right corner. I think potentially going to have a red that he can try and take into the left corner as well. Depends on the pink placement. And yeah, you can see that he wasn't quite happy with taking the pink out of the game, because ideally he wants it to be respotted back into its own spot. In the end, the pink has to be placed underneath their main bunch of reds, which can be a benefit if you try and play a little split from the black. But with the black not being available at all, it's not really going to be an advantage that Selt is going to be able to try and use now. Now he's just trying to get himself back in this match there. Still 2-frame advantage for Wakelin. It's not quite going to be game over, but a 4-0 deficit for Selt to be carrying over into second midi-session will leave him the requirement of winning 6 of the remaining 8 frames at that stage. And now as he tries to get the blue in, forces the cue ball off the left side cushion. So once again, slightly under on for this red, but the angle is actually going to be beneficial there for Selt as he tries to get this red onto the blue to be set up into the left middle. So needs to cue this one well, because I think he's going to run himself out of available reds here. So once this blue to have the angle with the cue ball, and I don't think he's going to have it, so Selt doesn't seem to be too worried about it. So maybe the red that is going to be slightly above the main bunch of those reds is actually going to be available for the taking there for Selt, as he gets the blue in to the left middle, getting himself lined up for this red to be taken into the left corner right now. And just having a look to see, he's going to be able to get himself lined up and pass the main bunch of reds. Still, with pink and black not being available, its easiest colour solution is going to have to be the blue. And it doesn't seem like there's going to be an easy way past all of those reds, apart from you sort of putting all sort of backspin on the cue ball, which is not going to sort of make it past all of those reds. And, well, in the end, it's a shot that he's made the mess of there, Selt, because it is going to be a decent chance, which he had at that stage, but it is going to be the break of 30 points, and he's not going to be able to get this red into the right corner pocket. So he's still his highest break in the match, but it's not quite going to be good enough for him to put a significant challenge on Wakelin. And Chris is going to have a couple of those reds over the right corner pocket, with the black being available now after the previous miss from Selt. Well, still, it's not going to be easy there for Wakelin to try and get himself onto this black, because he can try and drop this red in, but maybe his best chance of getting himself lined up for the collar may actually be trying to hit a bit of a hidden hope shot, aim the cue ball to be going into the main bunch of reds, and just hope that it'll come out of the bunch, trying to stick on either pink or black. In the end, he's trying to control the cue ball, and I don't think it's going to have a great result to him, because apart from the blue being available into the left middle, and I say being available, it's going to be quite a stretch if he takes this one on. He's going to have to try and settle for a safety shot to be played, as he still has got quite a few reds being available in play. And, well, trying to make his way through and to make a decision right now. Ideally, just wants to get himself lined up for the next red, and he's able to do so. So, gets himself lined up for the shot of the blue to be taken, and he's managed to take it well. Now, where's the cue ball going to finish? Is it going to be lined up for this red? Doesn't want it to cannon from behind, and he will cannon the red from behind to get it closer to the main bunch. And I'm not sure if it's going to be possible into the green pocket right now, as he tries to have a look if that's going to be the case. Of course, it's one of those risk-free shots, because you can always try and drop the cue ball for the black and leave him in that position there. It's not going to have any more of those reds available to him, and I think it does go past the other reds, but I think ultimately, mentally, it is going to be playing a bit of a trick on his mind. He can't really afford to be leaving this red to touch the other reds, because that way he's going to spread them into chaos across the table. And if he just guides that red past the main bunch, even if he misses it, it doesn't really give anything away there to Selt. So he has to take this red on, but he can't afford to hit the main bunch with this red. And is he going to be able to do it? He is. Now, is this red going to drop in? It's just about going to stay out. And, well, I'm very surprised that he clearly didn't have the angle to try and get the cue ball to be lined up for the black into the right corner, because he got the white into a position where Selt can easily see this red from, and therefore he's going to be able to go for it, try and put it into the green pocket, and make his way through the remaining 40-odd points, which he's going to need for him to be the winner of frame number 4, and for the match to be taken into the intermission break quite quickly there, with so far sort of 70 minutes since the match has started. 4 frames with all the breaks as well. So sort of 15, 17 minutes on average that it takes for the frame to be completed. Now then, Selt goes for a split of the bunch, and is he going to be on the red? I think he will be, but he's not going to be on an easy one, because the right that I can see available to him is going to be the one that he can try and take into the right corner. That way, it's not really going to be guaranteeing himself any bit of safety, and, well, seems to turn that shot down anyway, as he tries to take the red into the yellow pocket, similar to the one that Wakelin attempted himself. He's going to miss it though, and was he going to leave anything away to Wakelin? I think he did leave a red available into the right middle, but it's certainly not going to be an easy one for Chris to take on. Well, from this position, you probably don't have to say you may as well take it, because 30 points down, 83 on the table, still very much mission possible there for Chris to try and make his way through. And, well, he's gone for a little double attempt, didn't quite get close enough, and still drops the cue ball on the black ball cushion, allowing himself to go for the pink if the double was going to be successful, but ultimately not leaving anything easy away to Selt if he is to try and play a safety shot out of the main bunch here, which does seem to be decreasing in size shot by shot there, with all the safeties being thrown. And, well, can't really see the attempt that Selt is trying to take on. Maybe he's gone for the shot into the green pocket, but he's not going to make it, and he wasn't even close. Now, he plays the shot with great intention, because I think he's going to guarantee that Wakelin doesn't have anything easy available to him, because that red has gone far enough from the pocket, with sort of the margin that Selt missed it by. He was trying to get the cue ball close to the blue and to have it as another colour for one of those reds. And in the end, it is going to be another safety shot that Wakelin clearly has to play. And he's just trying to figure out which one is going to be the best one. Technically, of course, he can try and go for this red to be taken into the right corner and use pink as a bit of an extension to the pocket. But with the pink being so far away from it, it's easy for you to catch even the back jaw and still have the red to stay out. But maybe he's going to go for this temptation shot. It is going to be very difficult for him to drop this one in though. But you'll have a great situation to find himself at if he makes the shot stick, and he didn't. As I say, that was always going to be the risk, catching the jaw of the pocket and avoiding the cannon on the pink. And it is going to be surely the golden opportunity once again there for Selt. I mean, it will be a golden opportunity if he can see this red being so close to the pocket. And he can drop the cue before this pink to be taken. And surely, that stage, there will be no coming back from Wakelin's point of view. Or at least one of those frames. He drops the red in nicely. Now, doesn't want the black to be in the way of the cue ball. And, well, it is going to be... that is going to make a bit of a trouble there for Selt. Because when you have to bridge over the black in this case, is he going to be able to get his cue past the black in the way that he still gets a firm contact on the cue ball? He was able to do so, and he plays the shot nicely. So, Selt is now a couple of shots away of his own, of trying to at least get one of those frames back, and to avoid a 4-0 deficit for him to be carrying over into the second session. He tries to get himself back into this semi-final, and he has got only a couple of shots to try and play. Of course, you can understand why Wakelin was trying to take that approach, because, as I say, if he gets that red in, he's got a golden opportunity of taking the fourth frame away from Selt. And in the end, well, Selt once again there, just getting too close to the jaw, still dropping the pink in, but could have had a nightmare of a situation of his own. For now, 44 points. He's the advantage with 67 still being available at the table. He drops one more of those into the left corner, and he's going to be able to try and play for the pink for a couple of more shots right now. Just having a look, he's got 3 reds onto the top part of the table, and he's got one more easy red on the lower part of it, one more on the side cushion. He's not going to be able to get on the easy red right now, it would seem, because of him having to play the shot from the different angle on the pink. So he's trying to get the cue ball onto the top part of the table, and I think he's managed to play that shot pretty well. Still not going to be perfect to be set up for this cut on the right middle. That's probably why he changes another red to be taken into the green pocket. So then 51 points is the advantage, makes that 52 with 59 points at the table. So needs one more colour and red combination. With one of those reds being so close to the right middle, surely he's going to be able to get himself lined up for that. So it is going to be the gap of 3 frames to 1 there for Matt Selt to try and overcome going into the second session. As he's going to just drop the red into the right middle, get himself lined up for the blue, with the side of going for the top part of the table once again. So the breaks off 30 and, well, 31 points right now as he gets the blue into the left middle. I'm going to get Matt Selt over the line now and leave Chris Wakelin still not quite in the sort of autopilot mode. He still has to try and work for it at the 5th frame, because, you know, if you lose 2 frames with the bounce, all of a sudden you see Selt is going to be only 1 frame away from taking it back to square one. And with Wakelin having that early 3 frame cushion, it is going to be something very close to disaster if Selt is, of course, to claim that deficit back to him, especially if he finds himself ahead going into the decider, which is the endgame frame, endgame part of this matchup. But now he still has to try and make this break, the first one of the 50 plus points for him. And as he gets the red to drop into the right corner nicely, he's still just about going to be on this blue. So 37 points, and the break will continue for a couple of more moments time. And yeah, just straightforward 3 cushion escape for the cue ball to travel past the ball cushion. And it's still going to be quite far enough from the red to make this shot quite difficult for him. And if he gets this one in, he's going to be able to have the pink as set up. And he's not going to be able to do it this time, but it's still a break of 42 points, which is going to leave Matt Selt still in contention for the final spot. And it is going to be Chris Wakelin leading Matt Selt going into frame number 5, as we have the intermission break of 15 minutes. Chris Wakelin is still going to be the favourite, but Matthew Selt avoids the ultimate disaster of him going 4-0 down, and it's still going to be, hopefully, all to play for as we reach the 5th frame when the players return back to the main action at the semi-final number 1. Now then, we are back and the intermission is going to be over now. So Matthew Selt and Chris Wakelin are going to make their way back onto the arena. And it is going to be, once again, Chris Wakelin break-off. Has gone on before, but not on this occasion. At least not as bad as in the opening frame. And it's a nice little break there by Wakelin, and he's able to get himself lined up for decent tactical battle to be part of. And very nearly giving a red away into the right corner, but in the end Selt doesn't quite see enough of that red to be taking it into the right corner, and has to settle for trying to get the right side of it. But that's not really going to make his life very easy indeed, because if you try and get the right side of it, realistically the only way that you're going to put the cue ball safe is trying to land it on the black ball cushion. And well, to be fair, it's a shot that he's taken on anyway. And well, he was always going to leave a red on there for Wakelin, but I think as he manages to get the cue ball too close to the black ball cushion, the red that, well, he's going to be right underneath the black ball spot right now. Probably he's not going to be taken right away there from Wakelin, especially after that miss in the previous, well, all the misses really in the fourth frame that have actually cost him the frame win at that time. But especially the last one, taking that red along the side cushion pretty much, trying to maybe use the pink as the extension of the pocket, and in the end managed to get in between the pink and the pocket itself. And well, Wakelin was trying to get the cue ball as close to the black as it was possible, and I don't actually think that he's played a good shot there at all, because it's just going to be a free shot of Matt Selt trying to get the cue ball onto the top part of the table. Now then, let's see if he's going to be able to do that, because ideally, of course, he wants to plant the cue ball perfectly in behind the green, and very close to the ball cushion as well. Maybe going for this red now, and considering to take it on as a long shot. Let's see if that's going to be the case. He has tried to take it on, and he's missed it by a fraction. Where's the cue ball going to finish though? He's going to finish in the position where he is going to leave a long shot available, it would seem. So it was very close there. And probably playing that shot with power. Had to be right into the centre of the pocket. And of course that wasn't the case for Selt. So it gives a chance back to Wakelin. Had a couple of good long shots for each of the players, especially for Selt in the fourth frame. And I think it was the third frame as well. And a couple of not so good there from Chris Wakelin himself. And, well, he gets the red in. I think the black, it's not really going to be an easy one for him, especially with the cue ball finishing perfectly on the side cushion. I mean, this is going to be one tricky of a shot for him to play. And, of course, ideally for Matt Selt, he wants to be leaving this black over the pocket for him to be coming back to the table. But Wakelin has got other plans, and he takes the black in wonderfully well. He's going to be able to get himself on for that 4-1 challenge once again, after being, well, having two really difficult shots to play. Now, the black arguably probably would have been more difficult, for the cue ball being so close to the cushion. Just makes it awkward for the player to try and control the white, as well as getting the actual pot into the left corner pocket. But as he was able to do that, he's got a couple of easy red and black combinations that he can try and make his way through. And so as he gets the second red into the right corner, he can trade the corner pockets with the black being taken into one of them, and with all the reds going into the other pocket for now. 16 points, so he's got two more reds available to his name. So I think that way, if he gets himself lined up with 30 points or so as the advantage, that gives him some sort of a cushion to try and hold on to, as he'll surely make his way onto the main bunch of reds, ever since he's able to take those two reds out of the table. But he's got a bit of a chance right now to try and maybe get the white onto the main bunch of reds from this blue. Let's see if he's got that set up with him. And he tries to just wait for two more shots there and get himself lined up for the red first, and maybe do that split off the black, which so far, from my observation, has been, well, slightly more successful with if you compare it to the split from the blue. But of course, the one that he had in this match has worked out perfectly for him. I think that was in the frame number 2. And he ultimately led him to Significant points of a break there, which still, of course, wasn't enough there for him to try and claim that frame in the opening visit, and had to rely on a couple of mistakes from Selt. But right now, he's going to try and go for a little split of the pack. And, well, I think he was trying to be too nice and too gentle with it, trying to be too careful, because in the end he catches the wrong red with a cue ball. And unless he's got a plant of 2 of those reds, he's going to have to try and play a safe shot himself with having those 30 points. And, well, they do look to be going right into the heart of the pocket, but there is going to be a bit of distance in between the 2 of those reds. And also, Wakelin has to play the shot with backspin, makes it missable. And, well, he's taking the shot nicely in terms of getting the pot out. And, well, don't think he's going to be lined up perfectly for the blue, but he's still fine for the break to resume, because he has got a red now available into the left corner. But he doesn't really have to do anything with the cue ball at this stage. So as long as he drops the blue into the yellow pocket, which is not going to be an easy task, to be fair. Would have been a lot easier had the cue ball travelled 2 more millimeters or so, just getting lined up pretty much in a diagonal line. Now he's still trying to cut this blue into the yellow pocket, with still placing his hand awkwardly past all of those reds. Should be able to make this one in, and therefore should be lined up on the next red, and that is going to be the case there. Nice little shot from Wakelin, and very important at this stage. As I say, when you've got that 3-0 cushion, it's not quite having a 2-0 lead where 2 frames and it's gone. But still, when you're 3-0 up, the last thing that you want to have is losing out a couple of those frames on the bounce. And that is something that Chris Wakelin is trying to avoid now. And hammering the red into the left corner, but, you know, could have played the shot with, you know, slightly more accurate, well, a bit more accuracy, I should say. He's about to go 44 points now as he takes his black into the right corner, and he still can try and make his way through a couple more of those reds before making contact with the bunch, as he's got one of them lined up into the right corner. So 44 points is the advantage, still 99 points at the table. So he's not quite over the line now, but he's going to have a significant points advantage for Selt to try and find an answer towards. If Selt, of course, is to come back to the table himself. And slight issue that Wakelin has got now, as he takes one of those reds to the right corner, is, of course, the fact of him not having any of those safe reds onto the cushion at all. All the colours positioned perfectly and on their spots. So, of course, if Wakelin was to miss an easy black of the spot, which he's taken on right now, by the way, and give the turn back to Selt, he will be still facing some of those issues. And, well, as he overplayed this shot now, don't think he wants to have a look to see if he's still going to be on this red, which he was playing for in a difficult position anyway. But I think he's got the cue balls to travel a bit too far. And, well, this red is going to go into the right corner if he plays it perfectly. And he's just having a thing to see if it's worth taking on there, or can he actually see through to this red. The fact that he hasn't actually committed to going for a safety shot first probably indicates that he can still try and hold on to this break. As I say, 52 points is a nice little cushion to have, but he doesn't have any backup of having one or two of those reds on the side cushion. So maybe he's just going to try and cannon the same red away onto the cushion, but he hasn't played a good shot at all. Once again, it's so similar to the one that he's played in the second frame, where he just gives a shot back to Selt and basically puts one of those reds over the right corner pocket. So this time he has managed to put some distance in between the cue ball and that red. So pretty much the entire table length diagonally into the right corner, close to getting the cover from the blue. But as that's not quite the case, Selt is still with the chance of stealing this frame away from Wakelin, but wanted to avoid that kiss on the red. And is he going to be able to benefit from it? I mean, he's not perfect, but he's not terribly positioned for this, well, yellow I would assume that he's going to take on right now. Maybe take the brown as well. Not going to be able to go for the green, but you can see no reaction on his face. But, of course, had the cue ball travelled slightly less of a distance, he would have been facing some issues, because 51 points down with 83 points of the table, and having that brilliant chance wasted would have been an issue. For now, he's still in this break, And which ball colour is he going to try and take on? It is going to be the brown. Now needs the cue ball to run for him to have that set up for this red to be taken into the left middle. And he's going to be fine with it. Slight issue, of course, is going to be the fact of him running out of easy red to try and play. And ideally wants to be going into the little cluster of 4 reds underneath the pink. And, well, wants to avoid the kiss on the red as well. Manages to play the shot nicely there, Selt. And gets himself re-established into prime position now of taking the black into the left corner. And still being in there with a shout of having a first massive steal now of this 5th frame. As I say, still breaking that winning streak of 3 frames there of Chris Wakelin. And re-establishing a little streak of himself to go and try and win 2 frames of the bounce. Because he's still a long way from doing that. But he could all change in a single shot that he takes. And hasn't played a bad shot there. But could have been positioned nicer on this red to be taken along the black ball cushion. Seen a couple of those missed. But in fairness, pretty much all of them have been missed into the left corner pocket. Not into the right one. But still, this is missable, you know. Especially if he catches the front jaw. He has to try and rely on the back jaw to try and catch. But of course he can't catch too much of it or the red is going to stay over the pocket. Important shot this is, and I think he has caught too much of it. And well, it was always going to be playing for that back end jaw because he can't afford to touch front jaw at all on these tables right now. But of course he can't really rely on the back end jaw too much either. And in the end that's what Selt has done. And 13 break of 13 points is not going to be enough for him to be back in contention for this frame. Leaving this red over the pocket, and Wakelin gets himself a second chance to try and get himself re-established as the winning force in this match. I think he's going to try and cannon the cue ball into the main bunch of reds, but how unlucky can you actually be? Because he has managed to cannon the pink into the yellow pocket, and I don't think he can believe this one. And has he left a free ball as well? I mean, that is going to be one of the most ridiculous foul shots that you're going to see all week there at the Scottish Open. And the face of Wakelin probably says it all. Doesn't want to look at it. And, well, certainly won't be able to believe that. And 6 points is going to be given away to Selt. Is it going to be a free ball now? Because if it is, then it's a massive gift for Selt. And surely that is going to be the turning moment. Because, you know, having 2 so significant slices of luck there for him. Not well, didn't just see Chris Wakelin miss the shot that he actually managed to get the red in and still get the pink to drop into the yellow pocket. But now he gets himself rewarded with a free ball. And as he takes the brown into the left middle, well, barring a couple of those reds being closer to the cushion, he's going to have a brilliant chance of winning this frame and getting himself only 1 frame away from Chris Wakelin frames tally. As he gets the green to its own pocket. So then it is the break of 4 points for Matthew Selt. Gets himself lines up for this red to be taken into left middle. And of course for Chris Wakelin, on this point of view, you just have to feel really bad for him because he's done nothing wrong on that shot. And you know, the only risk that he was taking on really was just not having those reds to spread out perfectly. And in the end they have spread out really, really well. But he wasn't able to, well, keep the pink out of the yellow pocket, which of course was completely out of his control. So just one of those shots that you can't really do much about. And you have to try and take down the chin and try and move on to the next frame. If that is to be the end of his campaign on frame number 5 there. It does seem like it because even though Selt still finds himself 28 points down, he's got a wonderful position set up ahead of himself. And, well, made the mess of this shot though. He's going to have to use the rest to go for this red to be taken into the right corner. And that was one of the easiest reds that he had. So you can see just not being happy with himself, making a bit of a difficult job of a straightforward positional shot previously off the blue to be taking the cue ball down the table. And, well, this is missable. And, of course, if Selt is unable to make the most out of this position and out of 2 gifts of a destiny like that, and Snooker God's clearly having fun with this matchup. And, well, won't be getting a better chance than this, surely, in the rest of the semi-final. But for now, He's able to recover from getting the pot in. Is he going to be perfectly on the blue? Not quite. So that's still going to be an issue for him, because he doesn't want to take the yellow on, because it's not going to have any sort of angle at all. That way, he needs to be taking the brown into the yellow pocket and trying to get himself lined up for the lower part of the table once again. Shouldn't be too difficult at this stage for him to just try and drop the brown in, but he has to play this one with power. And I think he's managed to control the shot pretty well. And, well, he's going to be certainly lined up for this red to be taken into the corner pocket. And, well, for now, it does seem like it's all going to come down to that red, which is currently getting himself positioned on the side cushion. And, well, Selt making the hard job once again there of this shot, because, you know, slightly overrun for this pink. He was trying to get the cue ball to drop in behind the black and try and get himself lined up for this red to be taking. And on the black ball cushion, and doesn't want the cue ball to bounce away from the cushion. And it's played the shot nicely now. 11 points behind there, Selt. So, as I say, he will need all of those colours, but it ain't going to matter at that stage. He just needs to get himself past those two reds and get himself on some of those bold colours. Now then, he's committed to going for this black to be taken into the right corner. So as he's still 10 points behind, he can try and drop the cue ball in behind the red. Clearly committed to playing it along the side cushion. And, well, has he played it well enough? I think he has. He's going to have the cue ball placed perfectly on the side cushion. So he's going to have the angle to try and drop the cue ball in behind the black to be taking it into the right corner. And he's going to try and stun it as well. Now then, has he played a good shot now? He has. So it all comes down to the last little piece of the puzzle that he needs completed for this frame to be his for the taking. The transitional shot from the black onto the yellow and getting himself set up for the 6 colour clearance, which will get him set up for his highest break of the match so far. And, well, you have to feel really sorry for Chris Wakelin, because he's done nothing wrong ever since that first mistake, which still had him 50 points clear of Matthew Selt, and in the end, it does look like it is going to be 6 colours for the total clearance for Matt Selt to be taking the second frame on the bounce, and Chris Wakelin be feeling very much gutted and robbed of a frame win, which, as I say, I feel like he's done everything he had to, barring that opening mistake, which still had plenty of other chances at, just playing that red into the right corner, trying to cannon the cue ball into the main bunch of reds and the pink, going all the way and dropping into the yellow pocket. Turned into an absolute disaster for him, and now leaves Selt only needing the blue to be taken into the right middle for him to be over the line and getting 2 of those frames. One straight, well, right before the end of the first mini session, and one more of them being right at the start of the second mini session here as well. And it is going to be the break of 52 points for Matthew Selt, so his first 50 plus of the match. Still have to give him some sort of credit for the break that he's managed to put in. He's done everything that he had to for him to complete the break of 65 points now, as he takes the black into the left corner, and it is going to be Chris Wakelin 3, Matthew Selt 2, as he takes a good win here, and a very important win in this frame as well. And, well, Chris Wakelin will be feeling very much hard done by there, and he'll have to try and put that frame behind him as quickly as he can, because when you lose the frame under those circumstances, it's still great news for him that he's got that frame cushion still to try and hold on to, but bad news is going to be the fact of him losing 2 frames on the bounce now, and desperately he's going to be looking for that break of 70 plus points and ensure that Matthew Selt is not going to have any more of those sort of gifts from, not even so much from Wakelin, but just incredible piece of luck there, where not only does he pop the pink and it's a foul shot, but also he finds the cue ball into that slight sort of gap in between the ball colours, where it's a free ball given away there, because apart from that, it's still a very difficult long shot that Selt has to go for. In the end, he was able to go for the brown into the left middle, get the cue ball lined up for the green, and as he got the white onto the lower part of the table, it was, as much as you can sort of praise Selt for, it was a straightforward clearance that he was a part of, and still done well to get that 65 points on the board. But now he's going to try and, well, maybe get the 6th frame. One slightly in a more fair way. But of course, for him, it wouldn't actually matter. He just has to make sure he's going to be keeping himself on the winning side of things and trying to win third frame on the bounce and getting back to square one there for the first time since 0-0. We're not going to have Chris Wakelin leading the semi-final, and after him being halfway into the final, technically he's still there, but he's had his gap of 3 frames cut down to just 1 that he's got advantage of. Desperately needs his frame now, but as does Mark Selt. It's a very interesting frame now, and probably the most important for Chris Wakelin since the opening frame, because if you lose 3 frames on the bounce, you're going to be putting yourself under massive sort of pressure, and especially if he's not going to be playing well, if he's going to get and allow that fluke to get the better of him, he's going to be in massive sort of trouble, because that's exactly the kind of performance that Matt Selt is able to thrive on and feed off the negativity of your opponent before he gets himself into those winning breaks to be a regular occurrence. He had the break of 42 points on the frame before. Now he had the break of 65 points. If he used to get an early chance and maybe keep Wakelin in his chair for the rest of that frame, Chris is going to be the one facing trouble for the first time in this match, realistically. And that's why the beginning of the 6th frame is going to be very important for him. So it is going to be, of course, the break-off shot for Matt Selt. As he tries to get himself off to a good start now. He still needs this frame to get the match back level of having scoreline of 3 frames each. Now, then ideally just wants the cue ball to have a straightforward route past the blue and sort of covered up by the green. Nice little line. Not going to have any of those reds in open play, apart from maybe the one which is still going to be quite close to the side cushion. So played the shot pretty well. And now it's decision time for Chris Wakelin. Is he going to try and attempt this red into the right corner, try and drop the cue ball for this black? Probably not the best shot for him to be faced up with, especially after not having too much of luck with the previous long shots. And, well, he takes the red in beautifully, but he's not going to be on the black at all, apart from maybe having an absolute wild shot to be taken into the left middle as well. It's difficult to tell, really, if he was trying to play around the black or just trying to hold the cue ball for it to be taken into the left corner naturally without having the white to touch any of those cushions at all. But in any way, he's going to have to try and find a safety shot out of this. Of course, that's another issue. When you play such a beautiful long shot, probably going to be better than the one that we've seen in the 4th frame, and you only score 1 point out of it, you're always going to be feeling, slightly like all the things are going against you. And, well, I think he was trying to take this black into the left middle in the end, and maybe just trying to play it in the way that, he wasn't actually leaving himself on any of those reds to be taken into the pocket. And I don't actually think that he was honestly taking this one on. Maybe he's left the shot into the green pocket now from Selt, but it still shouldn't be anywhere near as easy as it could have been if Wakelin was playing for him to be lined up on the red himself. Now then, Selt has gone for one of those shots previously. He's missed it by so much that he actually played a good fortune for him and allowed him to have that break of 42 points made in the 4th frame. Is he going to try and go for it once again? Of course, the good news is going to be the fact of him playing for the bold colours. He's not going to have any of those reds to be giving away there to Wakelin. And, of course, still going to have the issue of maybe leaving this red available to Chris here. But has he done it? And I think Wakelin is not going to be able to see this red because he stayed over the green pocket. But he's going to have the green as the cover potentially there. And, well, Selt very disappointed to see that red to stay out. And just how close is it going to be there for Wakelin to be taking this red on? And he's not going to be able to make it, so has to go for another red. And this is going to be so difficult for him to take, especially from the cushion, especially after such a difficult previous frame. And, well, he's able to take it, but once again, as he was with a long shot, he gets himself in with a great starter and a great opening red, but doesn't have the position on the colour at all. And, well, he's having a look to see the cue ball placement that he needs to be seeing that red. left by Selt previously, close to the green pocket. So clearly looking to taking that attacking approach and trying to stick to it for now. It's a similar ping to the one that he missed in the third frame. Still was able to take that frame away from Selt though. Let's see if he's going to be able to make this one in. And, well, it's going to be close. But I think he's going to bounce away from the jaw of the pocket. Just about enough there for the ping to stay out. And it is going to be 2 reds taken by Wakelin. But only 2 points scored. As back to Selt it goes. And he's going to have the position on that red into the green pocket. So, I mean, Wakelin just probably going for slightly more difficult shots than he would have liked to see himself being faced with. But also, you know, sometimes you just have to play a defensive shot there, which we have seen a couple of in the opening 2 frames, but not so much in the frames number 3 and 4. Now then, Selt played a good enough shot, and I think he's overrun now for this black. He may be forced to going the long way round and taking the blue instead, because the black is going to be out of position and very close to the blue line. But ultimately, the way that he got himself lined up for this black, I mean, he'll be taking the cue ball to the top part of the table, which is not going to have any of those reds in there. So unless he goes for the brown and commits to a really difficult colour, he has to go for the blue and try and find a way for the cue ball to bounce away from the ball cushion. And, well, if he's going to go alongside the right side rail, he's going to be very mindful of the ping to be taken as well. And if you cannon into that colour, you're going to put yourself in trouble as well. So that's something for Selt to try and consider. Now he is taking this. Well, is it going to be black that he's taking just to commit for 7 points? And yeah, I don't really understand that. He's going to be playing for any one of those reds to be taken. So clearly just wants to have 7 points to be scored. And didn't feel there was a point in going for the blue, because that way he wasn't going to have the cue ball to travel so much distance. And well, it was a good chance for Wakelin, but it was a brilliant chance for Selt that he's going to be very disappointed to only score 8 points out of. And, well, he does have a safety shot to try and play, but still would not have been the plan, and especially if he's going to catch the blue like that. So, I did say he had a safety shot advantage over Chris Wakelin, but he didn't manage to use it well at all, getting the thinnest of contacts on that red, and you can see that clearly has gone out of hand for him. And Wakelin will be able to have the privilege of taking the first real safety shot now, getting the cue ball to be in behind the green. Played his shot well enough to cover up 90% of those reds, but the red that he's actually left out to, Wakelin is taking to the left corner. I think it is going to be possible. So it is all going to come down to the fact of him having that ability to try and play for the black. The answer seems to be negative though. Selt is going to try and go for another one of those reds that he can still try to drop in to the right corner, and in the end, of course, he wasn't actually playing for any of those reds. He was just trying to have a little nudge to the plant onto the black ball cushion, so no real attempt of going for the attacking shot there. Just switching the turn and giving it back to Wakelin for now. Chris is going to try and probably do a similar sort of thing here, because, you know, Selt actually had the better view of all those reds, and he still decided not to go for the attacking shot. Really is going to be the indication of Wakelin going for the same short selection. But you see, Wakelin has gone for the red that I thought Selt was going to play. But Selt was in a better position than Wakelin previously. And Chris is going to be quite lucky if he can use that adverb towards him after what happened in the previous frame of getting a nice little kiss on the brown and getting the pink to be in the way of those reds. With the cue ball trying to be sent down the table once again. I mean, you can see that that red is absolutely pointless to be taking on, because it's not quite an easy, but it's a straightforward long shot that you can try and play. And players clearly not feeling that. It is going to be worth it to be taking on this red. And, well, Selt with a mighty try. And as he managed to get the cue ball too close to the blue, because, I mean, this could be a massive difference maker. Don't think he's happy with himself, so clearly it doesn't feel like he has. And that way, the red that I mentioned previously is going to be a straightforward long shot with the way the cue ball is positioned diagonally towards him. He's probably going to be able to get that cue ball past all the sort of a row of reds positioned on the black ball cushion. And so Wakelin having a look himself to ensure that he's going to be able to get past through to this red. And if he takes this one, he's made the previous 2 long shots stick. Let's see if he's going to be able to make it 3 out of 3. And he has taken this on. He's made it 3 out of 3. Now then, where's the cue ball going to finish? I think he's overrun for the brown, which is going to be out of position. And he doesn't really have a plan B option. Well, he's just about fine for the brown to be taking on, but it's going to be far from an easy shot there. You can see he was just about fine to miss that contact on the red, which probably put him out of position for one more colour. And gets the brown in. Now, where's the cue ball going to finish for this red? The line seems to be good. The pace seems to be, well, slightly underrun there, but still decent for him to try and drop this cue ball on for the pink or black combination. You can try and choose from. The black is available into the left corner quite freely. Not so much into the right corner with having 5 reds in the way of that. The Selt, of course, will be very disappointed with the previous shot. So close to leaving Wakelin in such a difficult position. In the end, wasn't quite the case. With him leaving that red available. And so sometimes you only need 1 red for you to be on the way. And with a chance to have another break. Because he's got a straightforward shot there with the red to be taken along the side cushion. That he even has the way to get himself on the colour. But if he gets himself positioned on the pink, which is so close to the left middle, that way he's going to be facing well, quite a significant problem having the next shot and the lineup for the red. So he had to go for the red into the left corner, and he's played this shot absolutely perfectly because he was able to hold the cue ball well enough so that he's actually going to be on the top part of the black, which is going to be very important for him to try and drop the cue ball onto the black ball cushion, have one of those reds to be going along the cushion and have the black to be lined up into the left corner, which for now is the only available option there for Wakelin. But I don't think he's played the shot as well as he could have, because ideally he wants to have a significant angle on the cue ball to try and play through this red and get himself lined up for this black. He doesn't want to have to force his shot through, because that way it's going to be really easy for you to lose control of the white. And he may actually have to try and get his way around it. And yeah, it was far from ideal. In the end, the damage was done on the previous shot. And it was quite a sort of straightforward thing to be aware about. Had to play around the black and for the pink. And of course, if the pink is going to be respotted onto its original position, it is going to be a bonus there for Wakelin. But there's not going to be an easy way for him to get the cue ball lined up for those reds into the right corner. Played this one with power, which was difficult, to be fair, because of having that pink so close to that right middle and also to the right side jaw. Could have missed that one by a fraction or so. And now just having a look as he hammers one of those reds out of the way. He's got 15 points advantage to that. You'll be very aware of right now that it's not going to mean anything until he's over the line. He had a 50-point advantage in the previous frame, and for a fraction of a second he's managed to put a red into the right corner brilliantly, and he still wasn't able to get any more shots after that one because of pink dropping in, him giving away a free ball chance away to Selt, and Matthew was able to capitalize on that mistake with sort of a full advantage being made, 65 points being scored, and the frame being taken away there from Chris. He's got 20 points advantage now. He's only has got 91 points available though on the table, so this is going to be something for him to keep in mind of, because of course on the previous frame he didn't have any of those problems for Matthew Selt. Right now he has got this blue to be on the right side cushion, and Wakelin once again being very much proactive with his body language and just saying that he was probably lucky to be still on this black after this shot has gone pretty much out of hand there previously. And if he's got this black to try and drop it into the corner pocket, he'll still have the selection of 2 reds, but he has to go deep onto the cue ball and dig really deep onto the shot. Is he going to be able to take this one in? He will be. And of course, if he is going to be straight on this red, there's nothing you can do about it. But you can see, I think he hit the wrong red first. That way, he didn't have enough spin and didn't have the line of the cue ball to follow the example that he was trying to reach. And, well, now he's still going to be 30 points clear of Matthew Selt. Now, just having a look to see, I mean, he's got 6 reds left out on the table, which makes it 75 points here. And, I mean, I can't really see where the next red is coming from. Unless he can try and use the black to get past those 2 reds, but he doesn't seem to go for that. So maybe he's going to try and position the cue ball in behind that red to be taking it into the left corner instead. But as I say, I think it's easier to do it from the black. And Wakelin, I think, agreeing with me on this one. But still has to add a bit of spin. Played the shot well enough. And well, in the end, he adjusted the plan. And he still played the shot absolutely brilliantly. Because he was trying to get in behind one of those 2 reds to either play the one closer to the side cushion along the side cushion, or have the one taken into the left corner instead. Similar to the one that he's managed to pot previously in this break. Right at the start of it, really. But now goes for the shot to be taken along the side cushion. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to be able to get over the line with those 2 reds to be taken. He's 38 points clear right now. Still 67 points on the table. So he's got 1 more red available. And if he gets 13 points out of those 2, he's going to be 52 points clear with still having 59 on the table. So he needs 1 more red after this one as he takes the pink into the right corner. For a 4-2 advantage. Remember, Matthew Selt had a similar frame to the frame number 5 here at the semi-final against his opponent yesterday of Gian John, but ultimately didn't actually cost him the match, and he was still able to get over the line comfortably. Wakelin is going to be able to put all that struggle in the previous frame behind him if he's going to be able to complete this break now, and he's going to be getting ever closer, but not quite over the finish line. He's 45 points clear, still 59 points on the table. So if he takes these black on, he's going to be able to go 52 points clear and leaves himself needing 1 more of those reds to be taken. Don't really see a way which he's going to actually get himself lined up for 1 of them, unless he goes really deep onto this black, gets himself lined up for that red to be taken by getting in behind of it. But I think it's going to be very close for him to be sort of hampered by the black. And, well, it's not quite going to be over the line, but it's still a brilliant break of 58 points there by Chris. And after potting 2 lonely reds at the start of the frame, now he's going to be having that cushion of 52 points, with 59 still being up for grabs. He needed a red colour combination to ensure that Selt wasn't coming back to the table. And although he will, he still has got some serious issues to make his way through there, Selt, because he's got 1 of those reds being perfectly in the middle of the black ball cushion. And, well, that's not the way to play a safety shot, though. And Wakelin needs a bit of luck, and he's not going to get it. And, yeah, he's made the mess of that. And I thought it was going to be quite a few issues for Selt to make his way through, but Wakelin not helping himself, and, yeah, he should have had the cue ball. Anyway, yeah, he didn't really need to have the cue ball so close to the jaws of the pocket. And that way, has the white to stay on the lower part of the table. And that way, he basically gifted 3 of those reds away to Selt. Of course, the difference to the previous frame is going to be the fact of Selt still is going to be limited in terms of the colours that he has to take from all of these reds. But if he takes the black with the first one, he's very likely to take the black with the next 2. That's probably going to open up the chances there for him to be taking any colour on the remaining red, which probably is going to be one of the 2 obstacles for Matt Selt to make his way through, and the blue being on the side cushion, probably being the second one. Of course, him needing a total clearance at this stage. That transition from brown to blue is going to probably be straightforward unless he wants to cannon the blue out of the side cushion, but transition from the blue to the pink to be taken is going to be an absolute horror of a shot for Matt Selt to try and make his way through. For now, though, get himself past those 3 opening reds, take them with the black to ensure that you've got as much flexibility as you can have with the last and the remaining reds. So that's exactly what he's checking now. So if he is to go 24 points with this red, 32, yes. So he's still going to need a colour with the last red, but it can be a colour of any choice for him. maybe, you know, as I say, should have figured that out previously. So maybe he's just having a look to see. Maybe he's going to have to shy and play the shot with that safety approach in his mind. Just carrying the cue ball to say exactly where the last red is going to be positioned right now. And just getting the red to get away onto the top part of the table. Now then, 36 points is the deficit, making that 35. With still having this black to play. And after this one, is he going to be able to get on this red? It does seem to be pretty straight on the black, which, I mean, at this stage, probably won't be the worst case scenario for him to just try and drop the cue ball in behind this red. Because he doesn't really want to be getting into the battle of a safety play. And having this red to try and battle it out there. And, well, doesn't want to be placing the cue ball perfectly on the black ball cushion. And it's a decent effort there from Selt. But he does need a colour with this red to be taken. And he's going to be dead on the cushion, which makes the shot slightly easier. But still, don't take it for granted. He's able to roll this one in, but he wasn't able to get any sort of traction on the cue ball at all. And now he's going to be faced with a massive decision to try and make. I mean, he has to go for this black no matter what. But if he is to miss this one, he can only get himself a restart. If he is to make that 27 points of a clearance. That was always going to be the issue, having that red to be taken and on the black ball cushion. You have the cue ball to be placed not quite perfectly on the cushion, but still very close to it. And he's going to go for this pink into the right middle. It's a really difficult shot to be taking away from the cushion. And he is going to miss this one. So that was always going to be the challenge. And, well, Selt, he's going to be fuming with himself. Technically, of course, it's still 27 points at the table. But Chris Wakelin comes away with an easy yellow being available to him. And he's going to be able to go for this yellow to be taken into its own pocket. And get himself lined up for a 4-2 cushion once again. So 2-frame advantage restored for Wakelin. Probably undeservedly taken in the frame number 5 instance, but still Selt wasn't able to capitalise on that mistake, and especially the mistake of a safety shot that Wakelin has played with, you know, whether he was not paying attention enough or he just misjudged the angle. He caught the jaws of the pocket, leaving the cue on the lower part of the table instead of sending it right to the very top of that. And with Selt not being able to make the most out of that situation, he's now going to be getting a nice little win of this frame. And with 18 points on the table, 36 is the advantage. It is once again Chris Wakelin back at the winning ways. And he's got the gap of 4 frames to 2 and only 2 frames away. It is going to be for Chris Wakelin to try and get into another ranking event final. Didn't reach one for 2 years after making the Snooker Shootout final, but also being the finalist of the Northern Ireland Open at the Home Nation Series. So he has got the experience of being at the very top. Of course, beating Jack Lisowski very comfortably by a scoreline of 6 frames to 1 2 years ago at the Northern Ireland Open. But he's now looking to be one of the contenders for the title of the Scottish Open. He finds himself with only 2 frames away from that ultimate goal for him. What a missed opportunity from Selt. Well, listen, he got into this position whilst having a massive slice of luck in the previous frame. Still had a good clearance of 65 points to finish the job off. And he wasn't able to capitalise on that mistake. And, well, I did think about it because the way that he was approaching that last red, I actually thought that he was going to try and battle it out there with Wakelin. And I think he would have tried to do that if the blue wasn't on the side cushion. And I think Selt was just in that sort of feeling where if he is going to win this safety battle, which obviously he's going to have a massive advantage of playing the first shot, getting the cue in behind the black, maybe just getting a snooker on Chris Wakelin, but he probably still was unlikely to get that total clearance with the blue being on the side cushion and having that transitional shot onto the pink being so difficult for him. But, you know, when he had that red lined up with a bit of the angle, he tried to roll it along the black ball cushion, which I still think he could have left himself slightly more margin for that shot to be played closer to the black, because the red was perfectly on the black ball cushion, which, as you all know, makes the shot slightly easier for one of the players, especially if it is going to be taken into the left corner. And, well, was able to get the red in, but wasn't able to get himself lined up for the black. In the end, had to go for the pink into the right middle and missed it. And Wakelin was able to take, the 3 easy bowl colours, which were the only 3 colours that he needed at that stage for him to be having a gap of 4 frames to 2 now. And once again, having that 2-frame cushion restored. And Selt is going to be under massive pressure right now because I don't think Wakelin has shown any signs of, him trying to sort of crumble under pressure. He had some weird shot selections, yes, especially in the previous frame, as I say, when he had that 52-point advantage. All he had to do was try and get the cue ball away from the main action of Reds. He wasn't able to do so, but I don't think he's going to make the same mistake twice. And apart from that, that break of 58 points was brilliant from the position that he managed to encounter right at the beginning of frame number 6. Now then, as we're ready to get the frame 7 started, once again it is going to be Chris Wakelin to try and get himself lined up with a nice break-off shot. Ever since the opening misjudgment, I haven't really seen any more mistakes like it. And he was actually the player that was able to take 2 long rays after the break-off shot by Matt Selt. Let's see if he's going to be able to get himself started nicely for this frame number 7 to begin and get underway. Does seem to play the shot nicely in terms of the cue ball placement, and it is going to be lined up perfectly in behind the yellow, so covering the left hand side of the table completely, leaving the red on the right hand side of it though for a safety play maybe. Certainly not for the long shot, you would think, especially with Selt trying to get the cue ball lined up for either blue or black. I mean, surely he's not taking his red on. If he is, he's going to smell a bit of a desperation shot there for him. And he was taking this on. And as I say, it was pure desperation for me because in your life, especially for the semi-final, you should never be taking this red on there unless you are in the form of prime, sort of, I don't know, Watchalong or Ronnie O'Sullivan there. And, Selt certainly wasn't playing anything near that level. And he has a little smile, sitting back in his chair. But if Wakelin is able to get this red in, he can try and go for a little maximum attempt. You never know, with those reds being spread out quite nicely at the early stage, but he certainly can try and go for another frame win, which at this stage surely will take all the sort of marginal gains of Matt Selt away from him and restore that 3-frame advantage. So, well, Wakelin didn't really play a good shot there. He's still going to be comfortably on this red, but may have to go for the blue right now if he's not going to be able to hold the cue ball for these black to be taken. And I think he was trying to use the other red to hold the cue ball on the sort of very much closer to the black, which was a risky attempt, but he's managed to execute shot really nicely. And, that time where you actually felt like Selt needed to try and put some pressure on Wakelin, in the end he's going to be the first player to actually crumble under pressure. And now gives this nice chance away to Wakelin. 16 points scored already, and still probably going to be able to, well, double that amount at least for him to be getting sort of into that 40-50 zone before he's going to reach and sort of run out of easy reds that he can try and make his way through. After these black and 24 points, he's still going to have 2 easy ones that he can try and take into right middle or left corner. In the end, tries to play around this shot, getting himself lined up for this red to be taken into the left corner. Doesn't seem to be happy with the way that the cue ball has actually been behaving on the table, so has a little brush of the cloth and also asks the referee to clean the white. We all know what happened the last time he's done that. Missed the next shot by an absolute mile, and of course it was in this pocket, but it was a long shot at that stage. Hopefully that won't be the case this time around, and of course that little maximum search is going to be ending right here with him clearly playing for the blue to be taken into the right middle. Wants to be slightly the right side of it, and I mean, he's not going to be slightly the right side of it because he's going to have a significant angle. I may have to consider going for the bunch now. He's going to have that gap of 30 points, which so far has been very important for him to try and hold on to. Apart from that, of course, super unlucky frame. And, well, he certainly deserved a bit of luck there, and he's got it. It's a perfect shot by Wakelin. He had 2 brilliant split from the blue, not so much the 2 ones that he had from the black. And surely, at this stage, it should be a frame taken away from Matt Selt. The only slight issue that Chris Wakelin is going to have is, once again, just like it was in that 5th frame. He's not going to have any of those reds to be on the side cushion, which when you're actually dominating the game, you've got that 30-40 points advantage, you may have to hope for a couple of them to be on the side cushion, so that if your opponent comes back to the table, inevitably will need to, well, certainly one of them, if not both of them. And that just makes you feel a bit more assured and playing those shots with slightly more confidence for yourself. But apart from that, it should be a straightforward finish for Wakelin. Looks like Wakelin is set on taking control of the match. He was always going to be, and he never lost control. Had that 3-0 advantage. Lost out the 4th frame, which you don't really expect anyone to be losing 4 frames to the bounce. And Selt was able to be clinical enough to make that frame win from 2 breaks. Wakelin has a little brush of the top part of those reds, so it was a little risk that he wasn't going to finish on any of those reds at all. But in the end, he's going to have the one closer to the right corner. And very fast match, yes. And that was going to be the reason for this one to be chosen. Haven't seen Chris Wakelin for a while. And certainly haven't seen Matt Selt participate in the semi-final as well. But I knew that this match was going to be played in a quick fashion. And already a match frame. It is going to be a match frame because if Chris Wakelin gets himself set up with a 5-2 of that gap to Matthew Selt, he can't see the latter one winning 4 frames on the bounce, which is going to leave him with pretty much mission impossible to be taking this match away from Wakelin. And, well, Wakelin does seem to be living on the edge there of some of those shots, because getting those little kisses of the reds, he's still going to have more than enough the reds to try and be playing for. But, avoiding those kisses guarantees you a position, and having those little uncontrolled clashes with those reds sometimes can leave you vulnerable in the positional play. Once again, gets himself the wrong side of the blue, so still has to be calm enough under pressure. No signs of it so far, pretty much the entire season, and it's the 2nd time that he manages to reach the semi-final stage. Of course, on that occasion, he was only able to win 3 frames. Now then, needs the cue ball to go over the blue ball line, and as that is the case, he's got a decision to make. 48 points advantage, 91 on the table. And that's probably all right, actually. And yeah, he was always going to have a difficult shot there. 3 cushion escape on the ball cushion, which always is going to be the price for you running the wrong side of the blue. And he's got a bit of a decision to make here in the case of he's got the red, which is going to be easier for him to drop in from the rest into the left corner, or he's got one which is going to be closer to the cushion, which makes the shot slightly more difficult, but will have a guaranteed positional play on this ping to be taken. And he's managed to play the shot really nicely, taking the more difficult shot on and making it work for him on this occasion. About to make another 50+ break for himself. I think making that number 4 so far in this matchup. And, well, played another beautiful shot there, getting the cue ball to be going as straight as possible back down the trajectory line. And still getting himself lined up for the straight to be taken. Doesn't really want the ping to be in the way. And that's exactly something that the referee's checking. And, well, that's not going to make the life of Wakelin any easier. And, yeah, in the end, Chris has to be mindful now, because he is entering that endgame part of this frame. And he's going to have 75 points on the table after this red is going to disappear, which he surely will. And it's all about just trying to get that perfect play on the black. And I don't think it's perfect. The crowd acknowledged that shot with applause, but doesn't want to be straight on this one. Because if he is to go for a full screwback shot, he's going to be able to get himself lined up for a shot for a red there, but it's going to be far from ideal at that stage. And yeah, he's going to apply a lot of side spin on the cue ball, and that made the shot missable. And he misses the black there. You can understand why he was missed, because he was clearly trying to sacrifice the potting angle for the perfect positional shot there for him. And well, how costly is that going to be now for him? 56 points advantage is not going to do it for him if Matt Selt is going to be able to get himself lined up for the first red and a colour combination. Probably is going to be the most difficult one. This red can be dropped into the right corner, and well, is he going to be on the colour? He is going to be, but he has pushed one of those reds on the side cushion, but also he's managed to run himself out of reds there to play for. So unless he tries to get the cue ball position for that red to be played along the side cushion, which he has done before, he's not going to be able to do so. Can Selt steal this one? Well, not now. Probably before he played the first shot would have said yes, but I'm not going to say that now. He's got a really difficult couple of shots to try and make his way through, because a yellow doesn't have a significant enough angle for him to be going into the bunch. That way, he has to try and drop the cue ball on the side cushion. He must react. He does. He's got no option of losing this frame. Otherwise, he's going to be out of the championship. And it's just going to be the matter of time until that's the case. And, well, I felt like the angle on the yellow wasn't enough there for him. And it does look like he's managed to get some sort of traction on the cue ball, which is going to leave him with the red available into the right corner as he goes for the split of the bunch. And got into two of those reds. And with the first one going into the second one, push the one into the right corner pocket or close to it. Now then, once again, well, he's managed to kill two birds with one stone there, Selt, because as he cannons the cue ball into the red, which previously was on the side cushion, he's able to have himself lined up perfectly on this blue to be taken, but also he just managed to eliminate one of those reds away from the side cushion. And, well, he wasn't happy with this one at all, and I thought he missed the blue there with the reaction of him, because he did a little cue movement, which usually is going to be a sign of the cue ball moving away horribly wrong there, and still dropped the blue in, and well, he's not happy with it, and not too sure what is going to be the point of a complaint. But he still has got a chance of going for this red into the right corner. I think he was trying to play for a different red, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem for him right now. If he drops this one in, and well, if he was playing for the black, clearly feels like the other two reds are potting into the left corner, and well, if that is the case, it's going to be bad news for Chris Wakelin, because he was so close to having that 5-2 lead being his for the taking, and in the end, once again there, for the second time of asking, it is going to be looking like another steal here for Selt. He had one of those under the most lucky of circumstances, but this one is going to be purely self-inflicted there from Wakelin. And yesterday, Matt Selt had an issue of getting over the line, and this issue does seem to be coming over to Chris Wakelin right now. With it being the business end of this match, probably is not something to be surprised of. Still would have liked to see Wakelin just slightly more consistent, and of course, had he managed to make two of those frames to be won there by him, he would have been over the line and into the final already with a scoreline of 6 frames to 1. The same as he's managed to beat Lisowski 2 years ago for him to reach the Home Nations final previously. Now then, Selt has got another important shot to make his way from blue to red. Probably is going to be the last little test that he's got up ahead of himself, because apart from that, whole 6 colours are going to be on their spots or in and around them. That way he's not going to have any more difficulties for him to make his way through. And as he's got a nice little shot to be taking this red to be sort of 24 points behind. So still comfortably within the limit of points available to him, no matter which colour he takes on. And, well, playing that red onto the left part of the jaw of the pocket probably left him with slightly more angle than he would have liked on this blue. And let's see if he's going to be able to hold the cue ball back without needing the ball cushion. He's tried to do that, and I think he's managed to play the shot pretty well. So it's still not going to be over there. And I think for the pure domination of this match, it is incredible that we're about to see Matthew Selt being just 1 frame away from Wakelin at this stage. And the match can still be going the distance here. Wakelin had that 3-0 cushion. He should have had a 5-2 cushion as well, but in the end it is going to be 6 colours for Selt to have another steal here and get himself lined up on 3 frames being won. He does seem to be unhappy with the way he got on this yellow though, with the cube being so close to it though. Doesn't look like it should be anything to worry about there for Matt. Now then, maybe just doesn't really want to play the shot of 2 cushions, so trying to hold the cue ball for this green to be taken into the right middle. It's going to be not an issue of a shot, but it's probably going to be one of those shots now you want to avoid as a snooker player, because that's sometimes where it can go wrong, because he's not really going to be practicing all those shots as much as he would be the normal 6-colour clearance. But Selt is able to dispatch this one nicely and get himself lined up for a 4-colour clearance to be over the line now and have a 4-3 scoreline of a setup. Now then, if these blues are going to be taken into their left middle, he's going to be set up for a pink and a black ball clearance. Has the cue ball slightly closer to the side cushion that you would have liked to, but at this late stage it shouldn't really matter. And hammers the blue home, and it needs the cue ball to bounce away, and it's not going to bounce away enough there, so no opportunity it seems. Yeah, I think he's managed to sort of make the mess of that, because it's a difficult pink that he's got ahead of himself into the right corner, and Wakelin, of course, doesn't want to look at it, because he can't believe he's going to be close, and so close to losing another frame there. It's out of his hands. Now then, Selt needs both pink and black for him to be the winner. He gets the pink in. Where's the cue ball going to be? It's going to bounce away from the jaws, and it needs it to bounce away from the side cushion as well. So this is going to be a difficult black for him to try and take into the left corner, and there is going to be some pressure on this shot. Selt has missed it, similar sort of blacks previously at the deciding moments. Now, can he deliver when it matters? Because if he leaves the black over the pocket, he will surely be curtains, but it's not going to be just yet, because Matt Selt is able to deliver under pressure, and the break of 64 points is going to be enough for him to be over the line and still back in this match, it would seem. Chris Wakelin could have had this match wrapped up by now, but it's still going to be a scoreline of 4-3, and Matt Selt is certainly not out of the semi-final just yet, as he tries to battle it out and produce the ultimate comeback of the season there when it comes to the semi-final clashes. I don't think we had anyone to go 3-0 down at the last 4 match and still be able to progress into the final. Nice comeback. Selt is still in this one, yes, and Wakelin only has himself to blame for it. And he can still try and sort of redeem himself by having a comfortable win in the frame number 8. But in the end, he had that 5-2 cushion very close to him. He had 56 points of advantage. And once again, just unable to make some of those important reds to drop in. His lack of positional success in frames number 5 and 7 has cost him dearly now. And he's probably going to leave him vulnerable to, well, have Matthew Selt right back in this match, especially if he is to win the frame number 8 and put it back to all square for the first time since the match got underway. And that's why Wakelin now has got pressure back on himself and back on his shoulders to try and get himself back to winning ways and get this 8 frame under his belt to have that 5-3 score set up before he's going to be just 1 frame away of getting over the line and having the clash set up in the final with either Chang Bin Yu or Mark Cullen. Remember, we did have Lipe fan Gary Wilson, Mark Selby to be winning those tournaments previously, so you know, it's going to be very interesting to see someone like Matt Selt reaching the final, but of course Chris Wakelin's not going to be interested in that. He's going to try and hold on. He still has got that 1 frame advantage, which ultimately allows him to have some sort of a cushion and maybe go for the shots that Matt Selt can't really afford to go for himself. But Wakelin has to be mindful of the fact that he's been so close to winning 2 more of those frames on top of the 4 that he's managed to be over the line with, and scoring 50 plus points in both of those frames, and still seeing Matt Selt as the winning name of both of those, because those ones being frame number 5 and frame number 7 now, both of them coming in the second in the session, and at break of 65 points, still going to be the highest that we've seen of Selt, getting close to it in the previous occasion, and producing the break of 64 points, so it has certainly been one of the high scoring matches so far this week, and it has been played in the expected attacking fashion. And well, Wakelin does need a performance, and he does need a response now. Does need this frame more than probably any of the other frames, apart from maybe the opening one, because it is to allow Selt to return right back in this picture. And well, you see this black, it looked like it was you know, a bad miss at that time, but in the end it proved to be a crucial miss, and it was a large shot off that 7th frame there for Chris Wakelin. Now then, it's going to be a break-off shot for Matt Selt. His previous two have left out the chances there for Chris. Let's see if he's going to be 3 out of 3 there. And if that is the case, then is Chris Wakelin going to be able to take the shred that Matt Selt kindly leaves him for him, but he's not going to leave an invitation for him now. In fact, he's going to get the cue ball perfectly behind the green, probably as close as you possibly can be off the break-off. Not quite tucked in, but still not going to be able to see any one of those reds. And it's a perfect start there, by far the best break-off that we've seen throughout this semi-final. And Wakelin certainly will have his thoughts full about the way that he can get himself out of this situation. Selt got a nice little cannon on those reds and managed to spread them out quite wide away from each other. And this is going to mean that Wakelin can't really just go for a one cushion escape and trying to get the cue ball to be lined up for the left-hand side of the main bunch. So he's trying to get in behind one of those reds, lower and next to the black. In the end, he's unable to do that from the first time of asking, and Selt is just going to ensure he's not going to have any of those reds available into the right middle. And he's going to ask Chris Wakelin to have attempt number 2 of trying to get out of this snooker situation. I think it is going to be nice little cue ball placement there from the referee straight away, so it doesn't seem to be far off from the target. So hopefully it won't take too long before we have the cue ball to be re-established in the previous position. Chris seems to be happy with it, so does Matt. And Wakelin is going to have attempt number 2 now. It just needs to have slightly more pace on this shot, and well, he's gone for a completely different approach, trying to get a thin contact on one of those reds, and needs the brown to come to his rescue as the cue ball pulls up just in time for, well, probably Chris Wakelin to be safe now. You can see what Selt thinks about that. Certainly not going to be one happy man as he tries to... well, I mean, I still think that he can go for this red, really. Probably slightly too close for comfort there for him, but from the angle that I've seen, diagonally, I think he can get through to this red. Therefore, he can pot it. The black is going to be there for him to try and get into the left corner as well. Nice break-off shot, Wakelin in the blind straight away he did. And was able to get 4 points out of it as well. Now then, is Selt going to be able to go for this red into the right corner? And he was able to do so. Now finds a gap for the cue ball to be going to the top part of the table. And is he going to stop just in time for one of those ball colours to be playable? No is the answer. And Selt will be disappointed once again. Has to just try and nudge the cue ball towards the brown and get it in behind of it. But I think he's made the mess of that. And I think it is going to be Chris Wakelin to get 4 power points. Yeah, he didn't get the cannon on the brown at all. And he's not going to be happy with it. And, well, Matthew Selt manages to drop a difficult red in, but as he's unable to get the position on the collar, he had to try and roll the cue ball towards the brown. But in the end, clearly, it wasn't worth it, as he now finds himself in this position himself and tries to get the cue ball to be lined up for those reds. But once again, I mean, he's got such a limited target area for him to be working with. I think he could try and aim for that lonely red on the lower part of the table, but he manages to take the shot really well. To be fair to him, as long as he's managed to cover up that red by the left middle, he's probably not going to have anything to be given away here to Chris. And, well, that red is available, and the cue ball is not perfectly on the black ball cushion, so I would expect Chris to go for this one. But if he's going to make it or not is going to be another question, and certainly up for debate. And he's played this one with power, which makes the shot even more tricky than he already has been. And once again, he's going to have the red to stay out of the pocket. So similar to the one that he missed with the pink into that pocket at the start of the frame number 6, which still was able to take at that point. And, well, let's see now if Selt has got any one of those reds available to himself. I think he's got the red closest to the pink spot. but that one is probably going to be the shot with the limited access to the colours to follow up. So has to try and switch the plans here. Go for another red, which was the more difficult one. Now he's missed it. Where's he going to finish? I think he's going to finish on the plate for Chris Wakelin to be taking. And, well, he does seem to be getting all that luck back to him after a very unlucky thing in the previous frame. And, well, Selt seemed to know that that was going to be the case for him. A schoolboy mistake from Selt with that brown. It was. And now Wakelin trying to go for this red into the yellow pocket and get himself back level on points. And he's got a nice little number of reds to try and work with if he gets the cue ball down the table once again. But, you know, working with those reds is going to be compromised by the fact of the black being out of position. And, you know, if we respot it back on its original placement, don't think it's going to be possible into either one of the corner pockets. So it's only the right thing for Wakelin to try and develop the black spot first. And he tries to get the red into the right corner now for him to go 3 points clear after taking a nice green into its own pocket. Now then play through the shot with the cue ball, slight sort of adding of topspin, and he was able to control the cue ball well enough. And well, right now it's a very important shot now for Wakelin, because if he's able to execute what I think he's trying to do, he's able to put the black back onto its original position, but he still has to be very clinical with the way of getting himself lined up for the red, and he's managed to do so. And it's a really underrated couple of shots there that he's managed to play, because that transition from the green onto the red at the lower part of the table is very important, and this shot was probably evenly important for him. Now then to go 12 points clear and to be edging on another substantial point of a gap, which you probably have to say at this stage. He's not going to guarantee anything there for Chris, especially for the previous 2 breaks of 50 points that have actually resulted in Matt Selt winning that frame number 5 and 7, with the 6th one being slightly the thing out of the ordinary and out of pattern. See if he's going to be able to take this second session with sort of a second mini session, I should say, with a minimal gap of loss there for him, because of course remember he finished the first one with a scoreline of 3 frames to 1. Right now, after the second one, it is going to be by 3 of an advantage, so he would have won 2 out of 5 of those frames, so it's still going to be marginally ahead of the schedule as he takes those 4 reds with 4 blacks and gets himself lined up for 1 more red to be taken into the left corner. 107 points on the table, and of course you have to blame Selt for that, because don't think that would have been the case if he managed to get a minimal contact on the brown and leaving Wakelin to try and get himself out of that situation. Because you can say that Wakelin was quite lucky not to get this red into the right middle, but ultimately it still started off with a massive misjudgment from Matt Selt previously, and Wakelin is able to get another black in, which he had previously landed the cue ball slightly too close to the side cushion. Have to be mindful of that as the fact. And now to go 35 points clear for him to try and play the cue ball through this red, and onto the left corner he goes. Once again trying to get himself through as easy of red selections as he can do. 36 points advantage, 91 still on the table. And as we have seen, Matt Selt is going to be spending the majority of the opening part of the frame sat in his chair. And the problem for Wakelin is that out of those 8 frames so far, he's only managed to win 4 of them up to this point, closing in on his 5th win. But as we've seen before, don't quite celebrate when you're not quite over the line with Wakelin especially, and his performances today. We've seen that of Selt yesterday, and now we've seen that with Wakelin just seemed to be struggling on a couple of those occasions to be over the line himself. Now plays a nice shot to be out of the black ball zone and getting himself lined up for 1 more red to be taken into the left corner. Does seem to be trading pockets there, with majority of those reds being taken into the left part of the table. Sometimes black is going to be taken into the same pocket, and sometimes it's going to be sent into the opposite side of the table. So then, getting closer and closer now with Chris, having 5 more simple reds to make his way through, so just has to avoid the simple errors which so far has been getting the better of him. And a break of 52 points and 51 points of advantage, still 83 at the table right now. So needs 3 of those reds to be eliminated. And, well, maybe 2, with 2 expensive colours will actually be enough there for him. Plays another great positional shot there with the cue ball, getting past the red, and with a nice little cannon, still having the perfect positional shot on the black. Surely this one, he's not going to follow the example of the other 2 frames. And that he's going to be able to get himself at least a 2-frame cushion going into that frame number 8. Frame number 9. 59 points right now is the cushion for Chris, so he needs 1 more red to be taken with the black. And I think at that stage, he will be not quite over the line, to be fair. So he still needs 2 reds and a colour. The first red is already taken. So the pink and 1 more of those reds, which still has a really wide selection of. To go 66 points clear right now with 67 on the table. So the next red will leave Matt Selt needing 2 snookers and another great cannon by Chris Wakelin, which surely is going to get him over the line now at frame number 8. And with all the struggles, he still does seem to be in full control of this match, because when he does allow Selt to go 1 frame away from him, the frame number 5, where Selt was 3-2 down, and right now, when he was 4-3 down, Chris Wakelin was able to step up his game massively and deliver the punishing blow. And the break of 74 points in the current frame is going to get him comfortably over the line and set himself up with Matthew Selt needing to win 3 frames on the bounce, which so far is something that Selt wasn't able to do in this match previously. And also you have to say that that mistake on the brown was the start of a disaster there for Selt. And of course, had he not misjudged the little cannon on the cue ball, this frame could have taken a very different turn. But in the end, it is going to take the turn of Chris Wakelin. And the break of 80 points and counting. So he's second highest in the match that we've seen. And I think to the break of exactly 80 points that he's managed to take in the opening frame, as he takes another beautiful red into the left corner, getting himself lined up for the pink to be taken. So maybe a second century break incoming. We get to see Matt Selt to get past the break of 65 and 64 points, which of course have actually been the 2 frames where you've seen the win in the frame slip away from Chris Wakelin. And well, Chris is just trying to get himself onto 2 more red plus expensive colour combinations, and even if that is going to be the case with the pink and the blue combination, he should be able to make a century break here. Gets the first red in though. Now needs a bit of the angle on the pink to be taken into the right corner for him to try and drop the cue ball in behind the red to be taken along the cushion and into the right corner. So then Chris just having a look to see if he's going to be able to get himself lined up for that pink to be taken. And just tries to drop the cue ball as close to the cushion as possible. And getting the red, well, getting the cue ball slightly away from the cushion, probably going to be the advantage for him to try and get on the colour. I think he's going to try and stay on the black here. Still has to drop this red. There's not going to be any pressure on it, and he is going to be able to make the shot stick. So the break of 95 points right now, and the shot for the century being made. Once again, still the break of 129 points is technically on the line, and it is going to be the second century being made by Chris Wakelin. So another great achievement for him in this semi-final as he edges ever closer to being over the line. And well, Matthew Selt had a couple of early chances in this frame number 8, and he's going to be able to get himself lined up perfectly for this yellow to be taken into the green pocket. And well, great little break that we've seen from Chris. You can see that he's trying to get this green into the own pocket as well. So it's technically still a break of 129 points available, but not quite on this occasion. So the break of 104 points, it's not going to be the highest that Chris Wakelin has made in the semi-final, but it's still going to be the second century of the match And Chris is now only one frame away from making it into the final appearance with either Wakelin or Chang Min-yu. Matt Selt has got a massive milestone up ahead of him to try and win 3 frames on the bounce if he is to complete the ultimate comeback of the season of the semi-final clash, and to be facing another ranking event final of his own. I think one thing that you have to say about Chris, you can criticize him for some of those frames that he wasn't able to get over the line, but you know that when you make 2 century breaks, when you have the break of 72 points, when you make the break of 80 points as well, I mean, you clearly are going to be in great flow. And he had the attacking approach against Showdown yesterday, where I think he made 1 century to say the least. And he still was able to finish the last frame, well, in style. I don't think Showdown allowed him to go for an ultimate clearance because he was very keen to get out of the arena. He was very disappointed with someone in the crowd distracting him before his what ultimately proved to be the last shot of the match was taken. And the last competitive shot of 2025, he feels like it would have been impacted by someone in the crowd. Now we are very close to seeing another similar sort of win there from Chris Wakelin to the one that we've seen yesterday against Watchalong. And of course, Matt Selt was able to dominate all of his matches coming into the semi-final. You know, if you talk about the performance that he had against Young John, he was able to start away nicely from the get-go and didn't really allow any of his opposition players to be coming back at him. And Chris Wakelin wasn't really doing that either. And when he has done that today and allowed Selt to get 2 frames away from him, he was able to go into great Potter mode and get himself a break of 70 points on the frame number 6. And now, once again, Selt was able to produce that clearance of 64 points. The perfect response from Wakelin was making a century break number 2 and getting himself still within touching distance of being over the line and into the final. I think just final moments away before we start frame number 9. Once again, it will be the breakoff shot from Chris Wakelin for him to try and be off to a great start now. And surely at this stage, it's just a matter of time until we see one of those reckless shots by Selt. And I think that's something for Chris Wakelin to be mindful about. Don't really try and force those chances because they will come to you inevitably. Matt Selt is not going to be here to try and play sort of safety battle and be here all night and until the second semi-final is actually going to be underway there with Alan and Min-yu. And with this breakoff shot probably being one of the most important ones that Chris Wakelin is going to have in his career, trying to reach, certainly the biggest ranking event final of his career. I know the Snooker Shootout, he's managed to win there, and it still counts as the ranking event title, but he always has got that lottery feeling. And the one that he was up against Watchalong, I think it was always going to be quite underwhelming because you're never going to have that feeling when you reach the final against Watchalong of it being the same as if you reach the final of against Wakelin or Chang Min-yu. Now then, just having a little chat there from Wakelin from the referee. Maybe someone with the crowd doing a bit of a distraction work to Matthew Selt. And he's played a bad little shot there. He's left the red over the right corner pocket, so could be the beginning of the end there of Selt's campaign. And once again, Wakelin has got the break of 70 points that sort of is going to be in between himself and reaching the 3rd ranking event final. Trying to go for this red, and ideally he wants to play with power and to be lined up on one of the ball colours. That was the approach. Has he played it well enough? Well, not really, but probably doesn't have anything to do with him. He was just really unlucky with the cue ball placement being exactly on the side cushion. Having to go for the yellow, I would imagine, of the ball colour selection, and he's considering to go for the blue, which, I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to be an easier cut, because it's always going to be back on his spot, and it's a straight line shot where you can take on, and well, I mean, that probably is going to be a bit of a payback for that frame number 5, because Wakelin was really close to going in off there into the left corner, but the cue ball is going to wobble in the jaws and stay out for this red to be available to be taken into the right corner, and that allows Chris to be taking significant amount of control now of this frame. Still maybe refusing this shot into the right corner for the simple reason of it's not going to be a direct path for landing on the colour. And just rolling this red into the right middle, getting another lucky cannon off the brown and having itself set up perfectly for the green pocket to be taken. So as I say, that one huge slice of luck for Selt probably actually didn't work out too nicely for him because it was one frame. And we have seen bits of luck flying in or thereabouts for Chris Wakelin's point of view. And the majority of it does seem to go against Selt. But of course it's easy to say that when the person who's playing well and he's ahead for the majority of the final does seem to be getting more luck for the simple reason of them getting more of the table time and therefore having more shots to be lucky on. 11 points now for Wakelin. As I think ever since that opening frame, we're yet to see a frame from Chris where it is going to be a frame to nil for him to be won. And Selt wasn't quite able to do that himself on 3 occasions that he managed to be the winner of those frames so far. Another great shot there by Wakelin. And just getting those reds to be in open play one by one. As after he takes the black, he's going to have 3 more of those available. So he's going to have 9 more to try and work with. So it just seems to be taking a nervous approach, which probably is going to suggest that he's thrown himself into a position where he's going to be straight on this black. And neither of those 3 reds are going to be going into the right corner. So may have to set himself up for a shot into the right middle, which is not really going to be a perfect short selection. And, well, I don't really understand what he was trying to do, but whatever he was, he certainly played it absolutely horrifically there. And going to run himself out of position, so... Oh, maybe he was just trying to get his way past this red and get himself set up onto the left corner, but... In any case, it is going to be 19 points and the end of a break there for Chris. Back to Matthew Selt it goes. Of course, no matter which one of the players wins this match, we are going to see a new finalist, whether it is going to be the ranking event or the invitational. We have seen Chris Wakelin entering the semi-final stage before, with it being up against Ronnie O'Sullivan, but Matthew Selt, of course, was yet to reach the quarters final stage this season. And now as he got himself into the last 4 stage, was of course looking for that 40,000 worth of prize money and ranking points, which will be really handy for him to try and get up the rankings. In the end, it does look like it will be a massive challenge for him to try and do that, having the requirement of needing to win 3 frames on the bounce, although this could be a nice little starting point. The cue ball placement is really nice there from Wakelin, but he has put one of those reds right over the left corner pocket, and Selt still acknowledges the cue ball placement there for him. And of course Wakelin could not really control that red placement over the pocket perfectly. And I mean, the problem for Selt, even if he does roll this red in, he can't do it with power because that's just going to put the table into chaos. He has to try and roll this red in, and I mean, is he not going to be going into the main bunch of reds here? And, well, he's tried to roll it. I don't think that was the way for you to go. And that could be the beginning of the uncertainty now for Selt, because seems to be smiling and joking about it. But you will be absolutely gutted inside of him, because if you play this shot with such weight, it was never going to be perfectly on the black anyway. Because had the red been potted and into the heart of the pocket, it would have been quite far away from the target area. And, well, now Selt just has to try and settle for comfortable time in his chair, and that could be the last shot that he's just played there. Wakelin has got 19 points of an advantage, and he's got 115 points to try and make his way through, which he only needs around 45 points out of. And he's going to be able to be over the line, and after losing out the previous semi-final to Ronnie by 6 frames to 3, he can be the player that actually defeats another man from England by a scoreline of 6 frames to 3. And we all know what happened to Ronnie in that Saudi Arabia Masters. He's gone on to lose in the decider, which I think for now, at this stage, no matter who the opposition player be, if Chris Wakelin, of course, is to get over the line and get himself into the final, I think he'll settle for a decider and a 50-50 chance to be crowned the winner of the Scottish Open. Because that will feel very different to the shootout win of a couple of years ago, But also you'll be a great feeling for him to be a member of their special club and join, of course, Jack Lisowski as the whole nation's winner this season. And he's still potentially going to be playing against the former English Open winner this season of Mark Allen, unless it is going to be another brilliant sensation from Chang Min-yu. And should be a W for Wakelin. It should be if Matt Selt didn't manage to steal 2 of those frames before. So let's wait till he's going to be over the line and then we can praise what has been a great performance there, barring a couple of those mistakes and just being sometimes wrong decisions being made, sometimes taking the wrong shot on, and sometimes just being on the fine and on the wrong end of fine margins being against him, just not being able to apply the right shot at that time. And very dominant. It has been a very dominant performance though for Wakelin, whatever you say. You can criticize him for those mistakes, but he's managed to get his foot on the pedal and he didn't really to put the handbrake or use the brake at any point during this match. And well, of course, at some stage it probably would have been his issue of going for those colours that weren't really available to him. But still, this sort of style got him into this position. And once again there, trying to play a little cannon into the reds there from the blue. He's still going to be fine of taking this red, you would think, into the left middle, but it's not quite going to be as easy and ideal for him to sort of be hoping for. Probably is going to be one of the less testing points for him to be over the line now. Still has to roll this red in, and he is not able to do so. So that's why I wouldn't say that he's going to be over the line now, because he had a nice little position, which he was in charge of. But we've seen this movie before, and we've seen the previous 2 episodes of it. And both of those episodes have actually resulted in Matt Selt taking the breaks of 64 and 65 points and getting himself over the line, getting that gap down to a single point, a single frame of the advantage for Wakelin. Of course, this probably is going to be one of the toughest positions to be sort of working with, because even though he has got a straightforward red to make his way into this frame first, the next shot off the ball cushion, especially that he's played for the green now, he's probably going to try and make his way red by red now. He's got a couple of those to be working with on the lower part of the table before he has to make a significant contact with the main bunch of reds. And as he gets, he gets the green in. I thought he was trying to get himself lined up for one of those reds, but in the end, clearly was trying to make contact with the main bunch of reds, and that didn't work out the way he did in frame number 5. He's going to be still finding himself 45 points down, and of course, remember, the thing about the frame number 7 and 5 was that the moment that Chris Wakelin has missed that shot of a red or colour, he wasn't able to come back to the table at any point during that frame. And now it is going to be 9th frame, which probably is going to be different from it. 45 points for Matt Selt to try and get that deficit down to. 83 points still trying to work his way through. Now having a look to see if he's going to leave any sort of a plant glimpse away to Chris Wakelin here. Maybe it's going to be just one last chance for him to go for. And it feels like he has to go for those shots for him to be the winner of this match. And, sometimes when you're impatient, he can play the ultimate bad game on you. And that's exactly what happened to Matt Selt. Because even though he's managed to score 4 points, he is going to be gifting 4 points away to Chris Wakelin. And now, surely, with him having a ball in hand, a red over the right middle, it is going to be the end of Matt Selt's campaign here. He needs 3 reds now, no matter which colour he's going to be taking on there, Wakelin. And it is going to be the ultimate comeback, not produced by Selt at this stage, but hasn't really played a good shot now, especially with him having a ball in hands and having full control of the white placement. Could have played the shot slightly better there, Wakelin. And he's going to be going for this pink to be set up into the right corner. Still does need a couple more of those reds, though, to make his way through. 50 points is the advantage, so he needs to get that sort of number of points on the table to 59 at this stage. As, maybe just getting himself one more red to be taken away. And into the left corner. If he plays this one with an expensive colour, that way he's going to have 67 points on the table. And you'll turn the next red into a match-winning ball for him to try and pot. For now, has to go for a stretch now. And a shot into the left corner, which he went for, and he's actually missed it. So I thought for all the money, it was actually going to be the time for Wakelin to deliver and produce the wonderful clearance. Not quite on this occasion though. And 56 points is not quite going to be the advantage. Remember, he was 58 points previously with around 75 available at the table. And Selt was able to produce the breaks of 60 and 64 points on those occasions. Now then, he still can try and make his way through. He's got 55 points. That separates himself from Chris at this stage. And apart from the little cannon of two reds being so close to each other, doesn't really have anything that should cause him a lot of trouble. Now then, if he tries to get this pink into the right corner, I think he's going to be able to try and make contact with those two reds, because that might cost him in terms of having the perfect positional play on the red into the right corner. But he was clearly committed to it, and he's clearly happy to have this red quite close to the black ball cushion to try and roll into the pocket area. He's got one close to the left and the right corner as well. So that gives him a bit of variety to work with. Ultimately, I think the black is not going to be potable into either one of the corner pockets for now, for either one of those two reds being in the way. And Selt had to go for the shot of the pink, but he's managed to play this red really nicely and gets himself lined up for this pink to be taken into the left corner. 48 points now separates the two players. So once again, Selt is not going to be shiting those, and he's going to be able to go for this pink into the left corner. Just try and roll it with no pace at all. But I mean, funnily enough, he actually manages to find the perfect way for the cue ball placement to be bad, even though he has got three reds in the perfect placement there for him. So may have to go for a stretch for the red to be taken into the right corner, or a little rest shot of the red to just try and roll this one into the left corner instead. Trying to go for an extension on the cue first, and having a look at the way that he has to take this red on. Still probably not going to be quite as difficult as the previous one when he tried to roll, but that front jaw can still be quite damaging to you. And, well, he wasn't playing for the pink here, clearly. And he didn't really get too close to the blue either. So, he's still fine on points. He can take whichever colour he wants at this stage. But he can't afford to be losing control of the position now. And, ideally, he wants to go for the brown, which is not going to be a perfect option for it, making the shot having to be played with a convincing bit of power. And also just limiting the room for error for Matt Selt if he is to get too close to that jaw of the green pocket. And in the end, playing a nice shot for him, to be fair. Getting the cue ball back down the table perfectly. And just now having a couple of more shots that he can try and roll into the left corner. Having the black to try and stick around with. And just rolls the red with no spin at all. Trying to hold it for the black. Maybe this was going to be the chance for him to try and play this red into the left corner, because it was always going to be easy and easier for him to try and make his way onto the last red, with it being the open play, rather than trying to do something similar that he's done in the sixth frame, which has ultimately cost him the position on the black and allowed Wakelin to have at least one more chance to come back into the frame contention. And Selt does seem to make a decision of going for this risky red now, leaving the white with a bit of distance away from the black ball cushion. So this is going to be surely the shot for the frame, and the shot for Selt to stay in the contention, very close to the cushion, but not quite perfectly on the cushion. And he drops this one in. Didn't play the shot perfectly, but the left corner pocket was just about forgiving enough there for Selt to drop the red into the left corner. Now then, if he plays the black into the right corner instead, he's going to have the position on the red pretty much guaranteed to him. Just doesn't want the cue ball to be exactly on the side cushion, and that does seem to be the location for Matt Selt at this stage. So it does need that one more shot, which you'll be looking for. There, any colour onto the yellow transition For now, needs to get the red in first, and of course, mustn't be straight on the black, and I think he's fine here. So it is going to be the perfect chance for Selt to try and have another steal, and having breaks of 64 and 65 points previously. Now can he try and take it into the break of, well, similar sort of manner. He'll be 70 points for him to be over the line. I think you will need a total clearance to be made, and still 13 points he's going to be behind off right now, as he goes for 6 colours, which are all going to be on the spots at this stage. Now the break of 45 points, and just trying to go for this green. Straightforward position of the cue ball, just try and stun it for the brown to be taken into the yellow pocket for good measure. That's exactly what he's played, and well, credit to Selt. You know, there's one thing leaving all those chances for your opponent, but he's done the bit that was required from him. He was able to make it 3 out of 3 there. You could have, of course, made it 4 out of 4 had he had that better positional shot on that red to be taken along the cushion, and forced himself to be going for the pink into the right middle. And of course, if he managed to take that frame away from Wakelin, technically, it could have been a 5-4 advantage for Selt to be taken into the 10th frame. For now, though, he has to try and finish the job off. The pink is going to guarantee him a chance of the respot, but of course, ideally, he wants to have the black to disappear into the left corner a couple of seconds after the pink itself. And as he just guides the pink to be dropping into the left corner, it is surely going to be Matt Selt to survive for one more frame and stay in the contention for him to be still in the hunt for that final spot, and his highest break of the match, adding to the count of 64, 65, and now 70 points on the break. It is now going to be Chris Wakelin 5, Matt Selt 4, as it's still not quite deal done yet. Chris Wakelin had the chance of going 5-2 up on the 7th frame. He was unable to do that, allowed Selt to be within 1 frame away from him, and he's done that on 3 of those occasions ever since having that sort of a cushion of 3 frames there going into frame number 4. Wasn't quite able to finish the first mini session perfectly, and in the end it is going to be now once again Matthew Selt for the 3rd time since having that 3 opening frames to be lost. It is going to be 3-2, 4-3, and now 5-4. Matt Selt to be so close to Wakelin, and we all know what happened the last couple of times where that was the case. Wakelin was able to go in the next gear and accelerate and get away from Matt Selt in the next frame, getting over the line with no mistakes being made. Let's see if he's going to be able to make it. Well, 4 out of 4 now, because ideally that's going to be the requirement. He wants to try and get himself lined up for the next shot to be very much trying to set the pace up. You know, we have seen a couple of desperation shots from Selt previously, but you have to feel like the plan that he's missed whilst sort of being 40 points down at that stage, it was absolutely unforgivable for Wakelin to be allowing Selt into that match one more time than he actually was required to. I think Selt was probably already thinking what he was going to say on the post-match interview, if they still do once for the runner-up at the semi-final, and just probably thinking about what route to take home, what he's going to have for plans for late December for himself. But instead, he's going to have at least one more frame to be a part of and try and challenge Chris Wakelin to try and set up a decider. Still has the requirement of winning 3 frames on the bounce. He's managed to win 1 of them, though. And now as we wait for Selt to come back to the arena, we're about to get the 10 frame started. And it should be, surely, the time for Chris Wakelin to finally get this match over and done with. Or maybe it is going to be one more chapter to be written by Matt Selt. And we are going to be going the distance. Not for the first time this season, but for one of the most intriguing comebacks of this season, especially when it comes to the semi-final stage. So then, as we welcome Selt back onto the arena, let's see what we're going to witness from the 2 players. So it's certainly going to be great fun and entertainment, but from which point of view? Matt Selt is ready to break off to get frame number 10 started, and let's see if he is going to be the winner and take it into the decider. Nice comeback again. Yes, it is now 3 times where Wakelin was leading by 50 or more points, And we've seen the breaks of 64, 65 and now 70 points by Matthew Selt. Probably the only 3 breaks of 50 plus points from him in the making. And he was unable to sort of get himself put up into a position of trying to surely steal that frame away from Matt Selt, and he was unable to do so. Now then, this could be struggling times for Wakelin himself, because 6 points is going to be given away there to Selt straight away after the break-off shot, forcing Wakelin to try and play a cushion first shot. In the end, cannons the cue ball onto the pink and has got a chance to go for the second attempt. Of course, not leaving any of those reds to Matthew Selt. It'll take a bit of time for the referee to re-establish both reds and the pink to be put exactly where they were. So a bit of a delay in the game. So just having a look with the assistant referee. So the pink and the reds do seem to be put in the perfect position. And just having a look at the cue ball as well. As we've got the screen up and running, so it shouldn't take too much time for the referee to get the cue ball placed exactly where it was. And clearly Wakelin just needs to be trying to get himself so just taking a bit of time for the cue ball to be placed into the previous position. And well, referee seems to be happy with it. Wakelin does seem to be as well. And then attempt number 2 coming up. I don't think you'll be warned on this one, because I don't think you can see any of those reds football, but that's not going to be the requirement either, because he's managed to play a good shot there from the second time of asking. And back to Selt it goes, trying to set himself up in with a chance. Of course, I think he's yet to get the first chance of any of those frames really, and make it into the break of 20 or more points. It does seem to be Chris Wakelin taking the first chance every single time, and it's all about if he's able to get over the line or not. And as you can see, 5 of those occasions he was able to, and at least on 3 of those occasions he was really close to being over the line, but couldn't quite get over the line on any of those 3. And in the end, that's why we have the scoreline of 5 frames to 4 being in the advantage of Chris Wakelin for now. But as he gets the cue ball very close to the green pocket, now is he going to drop? Ooh, just about stays over the green pocket, and that's going to put Matt Selt under a little bit of pressure and a bit of scrutiny now, because had the cue ball dropped, of course it's a perfect shot for you to try and take this red into the right corner. Instead, it is going to be a very difficult shot to try and find yourself a part of, for him to get the cue ball into a safe place. And Selt clearly just doesn't seem to be too amazed with the shot that he's got set up ahead of him. And looking to see if he's going to be giving any of those plants away. Maybe checking the black available to himself. I mean, if he is to go for the left-hand side edge of one of those reds, he has to be confident that he gets the cue ball onto the right-hand side of the table. Now then, has he played the shot well enough? Don't think he has. The crowd acknowledged that with the applause, but I think it is going to be a massive chance for Wakelin to try and take this red into the right corner. I think Selt knows that. That's why he puts the cue away from himself. Certainly, well, at least one of those shots should be Chris Wakelin to get this red in. But, of course, where's the cue ball going to finish? Because if you're going to drop the red in, which most certainly will, is he going to go into the main bunch of reds? No, he won't. So once again, the order re-establishes itself. It is going to be Chris Wakelin with the first real chance. And got quite lucky on the previous occasion, getting the cue ball so close to the green pocket for it not to drop in. But now, goes for a nice long shot. And just has a look to see if he's going to be able to go for this green. Ideally, of course, would have liked to see the cue ball closer to any of those ball colours. And for the way down the table to be straightforward. Not quite going to be the case here. So has to go really deep onto the white and try and pot the green, and ooh, nearly fluked that one into the left middle. And in the end, it is just going to be a 1 point score there by Chris. So he's not going to put that to nerves yet, because it was a really difficult shot that he was a part of. And you can see Selt watching nervously in the background, trying to see if the green was going to drop into the left middle instead. And it is going to be now a chance for Matthew Selt to find himself trying to dominate the frame now and to win it by more than just sort of 20 or 30 points, which has been the case on 3 of those occasions. And of course, one more was 2 good breaks there of 42 and 30 points, which have actually seen him over the line. And he's going to be playing in and around the black spot, so we can try and build some good points right now for him to be working on setting up a decider. Now just walking the way around the table and having a look to see if he's going to be able to go for the shred to be taken into the right corner. I think that's really going to be the case now for him. And he can just try and get the black to drop into the left corner. Play it with a bit of power, not touch any of those reds for now. Just try and work with the ones that are actually available. And try and get himself set up for a nice ending to this frame. Of course, still being in the middle point for now. So gets another red in. So he's got, realistically, he's got 4 reds at least. I say 4 reds. Every single time I say 4 reds, I mean, if he gets those 4 reds out of the way, he's going to have 6 reds easily available in total. So that should be more than good enough for him to be very close to actually getting this frame over and done with. And setting us for a decider, which, of course, as I say, for all that work and for all that jazz and for all that 3-0 of a deficit that Matthew Selt had ahead of himself, it is going to be a very different picture for him to be a member of. And, well, he's done a mighty job there of trying to punish Chris Wakelin for all those mistakes that we've seen. And now just trying to make it an easy work there. Doesn't seem to be happy with the way that the contact on the white once again has been there, asking the referee to clean the white. So 22 points away there. And if he's going to go really deep onto the cue ball, he can try and make his way onto this red to be set up for the left corner. But I think he's going to be tantalizingly close to one of those reds on the side cushion, which wasn't probably the plan there for him to try and play the shot in such way. Still has to just try and drop the red in and play the cue ball through this shot to be lined up for the black. 107 points still on the table. So, of course, we have seen Wakelin struggling to get over the line. Let's see if Selt is going to be able to do it from the first time of asking. He has got one of those good positions there, which, you know, you still have to say Wakelin had plenty of previously. And it does seem to be more and more likely at this stage that we are going to be going the distance with 3.5 hours since the match has started. Still, absolutely no realistic way to predict on who's going to be the winner of this matchup. Is it going to be Chris or is it going to be Matt here? That technically still going to be a frame behind, but right now 37 points ahead there in this frame. And of course, winning 2 frames of the bounce is certainly going to help for the confidence and for the momentum. Try and carry over onto the next frame. And, yeah, just having a look to see if he's going to be able to drop the black in and to get around those reds to be lined up into the right corner. I think he's managed to play the shot well enough. Got nice little power on the cue ball. I mean, would have liked to see it travel slightly more, but should still be alright for the cue ball to drop in behind the black. Of course, slightly compromised by the fact of him not having the pink and blue available. And, well, looking to make sure he's not going to be able to repeat the history of Chris Wakelin. He has managed to make his way through all the easy reds. And it all comes down to going for the split of the bunch now. 46 points clear, 91 on the table. And he can try and make his way through a couple of those reds right now. And, ooh, get the black in. And is he going to be on this red? I don't think he will be, you know. So it is still going to be a frame up for grabs for either one of the players. And, well, not quite over the line there with Selt. And so he's going to have to make sure he finds the right shot here. And, yeah, he's just having a look there to see if he's going to have a safety shot to be played. Yeah, I don't think he can try and go for this red into the right corner, because if that had been the case, he would have gone for it anyway. And instead he has to try and find another solution of just trying to have a minor kiss on that red, closer to the yellow pocket, and just get the cue ball to go onto the top part of the table, and closer to the green pocket. Manages to play the shot really nicely there, Selt. And, well, once again, it's going to be a 50-point advantage, but it's not going to be anywhere near as easy of a position for Chris Wakelin to try and come back from, as it has been from Matt Selt on some of those occasions. And of course, that's not going to be a dig at Selt. It's going to be a compliment to him, and it's going to be a bit of a dig to Wakelin, because, you know, when you have 3 frames that you lost whilst being 50 points clear, surely you have to change it on the 3rd time of asking. And if not to be more clinical, then just try and ensure that if you are sort of 55 points clear and you've got a risky red to take on, or a risky black into the right corner, which he has added way too much of left spin on, you're going to try and think against it and still go for the shot, which is going to be a smarter short selection for you at that time. And yeah, he's having a look to see if he's going to be able to get the cue ball onto the top part of the table. So still doesn't seem to make his mind up yet, Selt, because Wakelin's managed to get one of those reds into the open play there and away from the side cushion. Also, with that shot, he's managed to limit the access of Selt to the ball cushion, unless he puts the cue ball perfectly in behind the brown and blue little cluster, which probably not going to be easy at this stage. Having one more look to see if this red is going to go into the green pocket. Don't think that's going to be the case there. So, of course, if he was to take out that top red away from the game and put it closer to the green pocket, or even try to pot it, I mean, it would be putting himself into a safer position than he can find himself at right now. So he just tries to put one of those reds away and onto the side cushion, but I mean, he hasn't played a really good shot there. I think he's just trying to give himself some sort of insurance of putting one of those reds onto the side cushion and maybe forcing Wakelin to take this red on right now. Whether it is going to be the shot into the left middle or the left corner. Of course, this could be the difference between us going the distance and Wakelin trying to get this frame to end and therefore get the match to end as well. Now then, he's got the red in. Where's the cue ball placement going to be? With a smile from Wakelin, you can tell that it landed absolutely nowhere near the place that he would have liked to see it land. And, well, once again, he has to go for this blue to be taken into the left middle, but this is going to be a really difficult shot, probably more difficult than the previous one. But he plays this one absolutely perfectly, and he's in now with a chance of doing an absolute Uno reverse card on Matthew Selt. Because, I mean, if that is the way that this match is going to end, and still a long way until that's going to be the case, it is going to be some ultimate level of trolling there from Wakelin, because he allowed Selt to be coming back within a touching distance to him. And yeah, Selt can see this one. You can see he's smiling because he knows, apart from that red which he put on the side cushion previously, it's not going to be anything that is going to stop Chris Wakelin right now. And when it's only one red for you to try and make your way through, you can always try and have a little bit of the nudge to it. He's going to be closer to the left side cushion, which is going to have the green, yellow, all next to each other. And Wakelin finds himself 39 points behind, so probably this break has to be spread into 2 parts. First part being, make your way through now 4 of those reds on the lower part of the table, and the second part being, just try and get in behind that red into the right middle, or maybe try and play it along the side cushion into the yellow pocket. For now, Wakelin is able to get past the couple of easy reds well, I say easy reds, they were probably one of the most difficult ones. He was just able to cannon into them and make them look easy. Once again, gets in behind one of the reds, closer to the side cushion, but on the lower part of the table. And plays his shot nicely once again. Overplayed slightly there for the pink, and may compromise himself for the next shot on the red. Ideally, he wants to try and hold it for this red to be taken, but I don't think it's going to be possible. So maybe just cannon the cue ball into that red, try and put it over the right middle. And yeah, he was probably just trying to hold the cue ball for the other two reds, leaving that one till last, which it's not going to be an advantage there for Wakelin, because ideally he wants the easiest red to be the penultimate one, for him to have a straightforward transition onto the top part of the table and try and have an ending to the frame with either a little cannon or the perfect positional play on the last red, which was always going to be the only real issue that Wakelin is going to find himself with. Now then, having another black to be potted into the left corner. It's at 16 points now, separating the two players. And Wakelin just trying to get this red into the left corner. So, as I say, I mean, he clearly commits to going for the last red to be taken into the left middle instead. And going for being the wrong side of the blue. He can try and make his way through onto that red. Of course, that will put him pretty much even on points with Selt at that stage. And, well, if his plan would have been to try and play for the blue, then he has to take a correction, because he's going to be able to play for the pink, but not for the blue now. This red is still going to be potable, and has a little look at the scoreboard. But we'll need the red and probably the bold colours. Probably won't need the blue at that stage. But for now, he needs to get those two reds out of the way. The first one is not going to be so easy as it could have been. And, well, don't think he's played too good of a shot here, because he needs a mighty angle on the black, which I don't think he has, to try and get his way onto the top part of the table. May have to consider going for the pink, you know, and just trying to get the cue ball closer to that red and make things happen. That does seem to be the case. Has to play this shot with a lot of power, makes the pink missable, and he has missed the pink into the left middle previously. And he has committed to just going for the shot along the side cushion. Of course, it's probably a shot that Selt wouldn't go for, because he can't afford to miss this frame and lose it. Now then, surely it is going to be the shot, barring the positional play in the next colour, it is going to be the shot that is going to be the difference between us going the distance, if this red is going to leave, he's going to be left over the pocket, or Chris Wakelin to be booked into the third ranking event final of his career, adding to that collection of 2023. And going one step further than the Saudi Arabia Masters earlier this season. Getting himself to be backed into the World 16. Ahead of some of the top rated. Surely it wouldn't end like this though. Surely there has to be another twist. But for now, there isn't going to be. And well, Selt certainly looking very much disappointed. And so he should be. He had a great chance of trying to have a dominant frame win over Chris Wakelin, but in the end, barring this shot on the blue and getting the cue ball onto the yellow, it should be a straightforward win for Chris Wakelin now. For him to be over the line, needs the cue ball to bounce away, but needs to slow down now. I think he's played the shot absolutely perfectly, and lovely little shot from Wakelin once again. And I have to say, it does feel slightly weird that for all the steals and for all the breaks of 64, 65, 70 points from Selt previously, he has got a break of 54 points himself, which apart from those steals is the only 50 plus break that we've seen. It is going to go like this, and the break of 59 points and counting for Wakelin. Well, surely at this stage, especially if he gets this green now with the rest into the yellow pocket, should get him over the line. And he only needs the brown and blue combination. Hammers the green home comfortably. And one slight angle on the brown, but even if he doesn't have it, he should be able to go for a backspin shot. And accelerate the cue ball onto the side cushion. Played with a bit of power. As long as he avoids a sort of a miscue. Plays the shot nicely. And once again now set up for a match ball. It has been a great match full of entertainment, and full of great steal of frames, but ultimately it does look like it is going to be Chris Wakelin with the final steal and the final word, which sees him over the line. And, well, it doesn't show a lot of emotion, but that will mean a world to him. The third ranking event final, and what a way to do it. The break of 71 points to turn that 53 points of a deficit around. And for all the money in the world, it looked like it was going to be going the distance, this matchup. Now to roll the pink to avoid any sort of snooker surge. And you can see just how much it means to Chris Wakelin. Matt Selt with warm words to congratulate him and say good stuff about him. And in the end, it is going to be Chris Wakelin that puts it a break of 77 points. And get in there, he will do, because he is going to be the player to be playing in the final against either Chang Min-yu or Chris Wakelin. And or Mark Allen, I should say. He can't be playing against himself. I'm pretty sure he would love to, but he will be. Chris Wakelin against Mark Allen or Chang Min-yu tomorrow. Feel free to tune in for that final. 2 sessions, one of them starting at 1, and at 7 o'clock is the evening one, local time here at Edinburgh. Lovely match. Matt Selt certainly played his part, but in the end, as he was trying to get back and back on level terms there, losing out on the 3 of the opening frames was very, very costly indeed for him. And he was able to get 2 frames back, once again getting that 1 frame of a deficit on 3 of those occasions, when he was 3-2 down, when he was 4-3 down, and when he was 5-4 down. But every single time Chris Wakelin was able to go a gear up and produce a century break, a total clearance, all like this. A wonderful little break of 77 points, which got him over the line. And now he's going to be over the moon as well. It is going to be Chris Wakelin in the final, but who's going to be his opponent? I'll have to wait and see on that one. And thank you very much for everyone tuned in. Feel free to tune in for the final tomorrow as well. But for now, congratulations to Wakelin, and we'll see you around for 2 sessions tomorrow. Stay tuned in. We're about to end the 2025 for the snooker season on a high.